The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome to the show. If you're tuning in and haven't been here in a couple of days and you're thinking, what just happened? We changed our name. We used to be Skills Live. We're Autism Live. There are some things to be gotten used to. You'll see that as we cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us, some of our addresses have changed slightly. You can still get a hold of us the old way. But we're updating. We feel that it suits us better. It's more appropriate for what we're doing and what we're trying to do. But we'd like to hear from you. If you agree and like the name change, we'd sure appreciate hearing from it. Or if you feel like we've completely gone off the rails, then we'd like to hear that too, because we're here for you. In fact, we're going to be here for the next 3 hours talking to you about how we can be more effective and more efficient working with our children on the autism spectrum. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or a practitioner, we want to be here in support of you and provide you with the information and the tools that you need to be able to help the child that you're working with. It's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. If you watch the show at all, you know I'm very fond of telling you that I'm not an autism expert. I got to be honest about that up front. I'm an autism mom. I have a son who is now 8.5. He was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, very profoundly affected at 2.5. He is, doing so well, and that is all thanks to the fact that we were able to start ABA therapy very young. He started ABA therapy at 3 with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And so if it seems like I'm a huge fan of CARD, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, it's no coincidence. I am. They gave me back my child. And I want to be a part of helping you to have access to what my child had access to. Really quality ABA therapy. And there's other information that we're going to talk about too, but a lot of it is going to have to do with ABA. We know that ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And not only has it been proven to be effective in treating autism, it's been proven to be effective in treating autism for all of our kids, wherever they are on the spectrum, whether you have a child who's very profoundly affected or you have a child who's very high functioning and just needs to have a couple of things filled in. Because we know, right, that this is a huge spectrum. It's not really autism, it's autisms. All of our kids are different. They present in different ways. They have different issues. They have different skill deficits and they have different skill strengths. So there isn't a one size fits all, right? But the wonderful thing about ABA is that the basic principles of ABA do fit all of our children. Within that, we're going to get really creative, which is why there's so much to talk about that we can be here for 3 hours and not run out of things to say. So we want to be helpful to you, and this entire show is meant to be a conversation with you. And to that end, we want you to participate in the conversation and tell us what you need. Tell us what topics you're interested in, what information you're desperate for, what expert you want to talk to, who you want to hear from, what resources you need, and it's my job to help provide that for you. And I'm happy about that being my job because I know how much people helped me along the way. And I on a daily basis, I have so much gratitude for where my child is. And I know that that it's because so many people helped us. So many parents who had been there and done that said to me, okay, here's the place where you need to be. Here's the office you got to knock on. Here's the question you have to ask. Because a lot of times in the beginning, I didn't even know what question to ask. If you're feeling that way too, you've come to the right place, because you're going to hear people ask questions and it will help you to formulate your own questions. We'll discuss topics. And when you say, okay, that I didn't know and I need to know some more about it, let me know. And as I said, I've been given access on your behalf to a world of autism experts. I'm not the expert, but I've been given access to them. So if there's something that you want to know, I hope that you will let me know and we'll find it out together. And that's an exciting journey for me. And I hope it is for you as well. So how can you get in touch with us? There's lots of different ways that you can watch this program now, and there are lots of different ways that you can participate in the conversation. If you're watching us live on autism-live.com, you will see that there is a box there that you can type your questions into. If you type your questions in and it says live across the top, then your question will show up here in the studio with me in real time, and we can have a conversation in that way. If you're watching us on autism-live.com and it says rebroadcast, because we're only live 3 hours a day. I have a child that I have to get home to. You know how that is. If you're watching in the rebroadcast, you can still ask a question. In fact, if you're watching us on any of the other places that this show appears, you can always ask a question as well. And one of the ways that you can do it is through email. We're going to start to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. But if you email us, what we will do is answer your question on the next live show, but we will also send you a typewritten response so that you will have an answer about what it is, whatever it is that you've asked. So email is a great way to get in touch with us, but you can also phone us. If it is 9 in the morning to noon Pacific Standard Time and we're doing a live show, you can actually call directly into the studio and be talking to me here live on the air. If that interests you, we enjoy having you be a part of that. If that doesn't interest you, and I know some of you are a little on the shy side, that's okay. There are people standing by to take your phone call and take your question as well. You can also Skype into the live show if you would like to. You can call our Skype number. And if you are feeling like you're having a good hair day and you've got a camera on your computer, come on down. We would love to have you on the show. We can be talking side by side and get to see you on the show. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And a lot of times we Skype in with experts. We're Skyping in with more and more bloggers. If you're a blogger and want to Skype in, let us know. We're interested in hearing what you have to say. In fact, we're interested in hearing what all of you have to say, whether you blog or not. It's all good, right? Other ways that you can get in touch with us that we're going to start to cycle through. There's Facebook. You can find us on Autism Live. It's a brand new page, Autism Live on Facebook. We hope that you'll go there and like us, and you can answer the question of the day there, have conversations with others. I will also tell you that our question of the day appears on the Center for Autism and Related Disorders Facebook page, so you can get in contact with us either one of those ways. We do check both of them. You can tweet to us. We have a Twitter account, and we appreciate your tweets, and we'll be reading those. Lots of different ways to get in touch with us. There's YouTube and Blip. We'll start with Blip. If you want to be watching the show and you find it beneficial to be able to fast forward, rewind, search a topic, you can go on Blip TV and have the opportunity to watch the show there. There's the YouTube channel. Lots of clips, really important clips from experts that we've had on the show on the YouTube channel, and we're going to be putting a lot more stuff on the YouTube channel as well for you to look at conference footage that I think will be really beneficial. If you're like me and you just couldn't get to conferences, but you wondered all the wonderful things that were happening at conferences, we're going to be putting a lot of video up on there as well. iTunes, we're now available on iTunes, and you can be putting comments on there. We appreciate all your iTunes reviews too. If you have an iTunes account and would like to give us a review, that's an extra fabulous thing to do. So lots of different ways to get in touch with us, and we we appreciate all of the different ways that you watch us. We want it to be convenient for you. We know that you have a very busy day, whether you're teaching, working with children on the autism spectrum, or you're a parent and you're trying to keep a roof over your head, keep food on the table, and help your child to the best of your ability. We know that's a busy day. So we want to be here and be free information for you, support you, and have that information available to you in as many different ways as possible, because we know your lifestyle and your time schedule are what they are, right? You got to get to the speech, you got to get to the OT, you got to be there to be able to do ABA with your child. So find the way that works best for you, and if you don't see a way that's conducive to you, or you wish that it appeared in another way, let us know. We're listening to you. And I know a lot of you out there were saying, I need to be able to rewind and be able to fast forward and look at something more than once. And that's changed some of how we've done things. And now we're on Blip. It's all because of what you guys asked for. So we are here for you. We're listening to your comments, and we appreciate the time that you take to tell us how we can better serve you. And again, it's all free because we know how important it is. I'm very, very blessed to have this opportunity to be able to disseminate this information, and it's really important to me as a parent, having been not in the same position that you're in, because none of us are in the same position, right? We all have different challenges, but having been in that position where you're trying to figure out, how am I going to help my child, and how am I going to do it as quickly as possible? And you know, there's the whole question of who's going to pay for this, right? And I know the stress of that. So I'm thrilled to be able to be here and be a conduit for you to get as much free information as you need. Please use and abuse me in that way, not in any other way. I'm not somebody who wants to be abused, but in that way, please do. I want to be of help to you. Okay. So we like to start every morning here at Autism Live with something that we refer to as the jargon of the day. We know that, and I know, boy, I've got an IEP coming up, and it's jargon intensive on this journey, isn't it? And sometimes it's so frustrating to me, and it can be very overwhelming in the beginning. You want answers, and you pay for money and schedule the time to be with an expert, and they use words that you have no idea what they mean. You ask what the words mean, they say something else that you have no idea what you mean, and you feel like you've fallen down the rabbit hole. Well, one of the things that I learned from parents who came before me is that it's so important to make friends with the jargon as much as you can on a schedule that you can handle, because we don't want to make it overwhelming. So just like we do with our children, we don't try to heap everything on them and have an expectation that they're going to get it all overnight, right? We work on things in very small increments so that people, you know, our kids and ourselves as well, that we can learn something, get comfortable with it, and grow. And over time, we see that that's very effective, that if you start with a little increment here and a little increment here, eventually you can chain a whole bunch of things together and you've gotten someplace. So that's what we want to do with the jargon, a little increment at a time. So today's phrase, is extinction burst. And this is something that you will hear us talk about from time to time. We've had extinction before as our jargon of the day, but I'm sure if you've been watching the show at all, you've heard us talk about extinction burst, and you certainly will hear it again. So we like to give you an actual definition and then give you a working definition, something that's a little less specific, but maybe a little more user-friendly. Okay, so what is an extinction burst? Our actual definition is an increase in the frequency of responding when an extinction procedure is initially implemented. See, this is exactly the kind of definition that I'm talking about. I used to hear these things and I'd go, I don't know what that is. And after the 5th time that I would say, explain what that is, and it would take 20 minutes, I just started taking notes and going home and looking these words up, and these phrases up, and I would see this and go, okay, no closer to knowing what it is. So let's take a look at our working definition. A temporary spike or increase in a problem behavior that occurs when the behavior's source of reinforcement is initially removed or discontinued, i.e. the behavior gets worse before it gets better. And that's really what we want to talk about, is that when an extinction burst happens, it means the behavior gets worse before it gets better. Let me explain what I mean. If we've talked a lot on the show, and we'll continue to talk on the show about how we have to figure out what the function of a behavior is. Everything that you and I do is behavior. Everything that our children do is behavior. And any behavior that we do over and over and over and over again, there's a reason why. It's reinforcing in some way. It has some sort of payoff, or we wouldn't keep doing it. Okay? And that's the basic principle that we always want to remember. In order for a behavior to be maintained, for us to do a behavior over and over and over again, there has to be some sort of paycheck for it. And different paychecks for different people, right? But there is a payoff for every behavior that we do on a regular and consistent basis. So if we're talking about a challenging behavior, if we start to look at challenging behavior and go, okay, wait a second, what's the payoff here? And if we see, for instance, well, the payoff for that behavior, the child is beating their head against the wall, and we go through a process of figuring out what is the function of the behavior, what's the payoff for the behavior, and let's say that we discover, and it isn't always this case, but in this particular case, we discover that the payoff is attention, that the child is beating their head against the wall, and what happens when they do that is that everybody stops doing everything that they're doing. They rush over and they shower with the child with attention. And remember that for a child that is doing something for attention, it doesn't have to be positive attention to be reinforcing. Okay? So it could be negative attention, but it's still attention. What we want to do in some cases, we want to absolutely cut off the supply to the reinforcement. So, and I've given a bad example because we want to make sure that the child is safe in that example. So we would have to first make sure that the child couldn't have access to hitting their head against the wall, right? But in other cases, there are times when somebody will be doing something where it's not self-injurious, where we will decide not to give attention to the behavior, where we will just cut off that attention. So when you see somebody in the grocery store and their child is tantruming in the grocery store and they continue to shop and you think, what on earth are they doing? Hopefully it's because they've discovered that the child is tantruming for attention, and they know if I don't give attention, that at a certain point this behavior is going to stop, right? But what we will see from time to time is something called an extinction burst. And what happens is that if the child has been on a regular basis tantruming in the grocery store, for example, and when they tantrum, they get attention, and that has been determined, and the parent says, I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. And keep in mind, it doesn't mean that you ignore the child, you ignore the behavior. But the child has been doing it for a while, and it's always worked. And they got mom's attention, but mom says, nope. As of today, we're putting that on extinction, and I'm not giving it any more attention. So mom continues to push the shopping cart along, and the child's having the tantrum and is expecting the attention to come. The attention doesn't come. Now, wouldn't it make sense that the child would just try that much harder to get the attention? Because the child is thinking on some level, hey, wait a second, this has always worked before. It's not working now. I'm going to have to try harder. That's the extinction burst. The child's going to try harder to do the thing that worked before until they get it that, oh, it's just not working anymore. It's, if we think about it, you think, oh, that sounds terrible. It doesn't get worse for a long period of time. When we graph behavior and when we graph statistics about behavior, you can see very clearly that a behavior will be happening, it gets put on extinction, we have maybe a little bit of dip, and then a sudden rise on the graph, and then a sudden decrease, and it goes away. So it's a difficult storm. It's a difficult storm, but it's worth it. Usually, what I can remember when we had to put things on extinction, what we would be told is to clear a day or two off of our schedules where we didn't have big important things to do during those couple of days, where we could just give our full attention to that behavior. And I know you think, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do, and really I got to clear my schedule for a potential extinction burst. But you know what? It's so worth it. What we want to be really careful is that what happens as parents especially, and I know sometimes as teachers, I'm a former teacher, is that you implement something and you get in the middle of it and you go, oh no, what have I done? It's making it worse, right? And you have that instinct to stop and say, well, it's not working. Let's totally stop. And that is the exact moment when you got to hang on for dear life, because you have to follow through. If you don't, what the child learns is, oh, I just have to try that much harder. And the next time you do the intervention, the extinction burst is going to be that much worse, that much worse. So we need to get ourselves ready for an extinction burst. When we know that we're going to put something on extinction, we know that it's a great possibility that there may be an extinction burst. It makes sense, right? I talk about this all the time, that talk about a behavior. I go on a daily, every day, I go over at some point in the early evening and I turn on the light switch in my dining room so that there can be light, because the light starts to go. And I know that if I flick the switch, the consequence for that is going to be that the light comes on, right? We all do this on a regular basis. And I've shared before that it's still broken. The bathroom in my master bathroom light, the light switch is not working. Well, it hasn't been working for a good 3 weeks now, but guess what? I still keep going over and turning the light switch on because my body still thinks that that's going to work. Right? Even as I'm doing it now, I go, what am I thinking? This doesn't work. I need to get this fixed. I need to call the handyman and have the light switch fixed. But it is human nature that if something has worked for a really long time, we're still going to engage in the behavior thinking that it's going to work. I am going to get to the point any day now where I just don't turn that light on, and then I'm going to get it fixed and it's going to work, and I'm going to be in the habit of not turning the light switch on. Well, our kids, if they're used to getting what they want through tantruming, they're going to keep trying it for a brief period of time. We need to hang in if we're doing that intervention and not give in the middle, because it will make our lives more difficult at the end. Extinction burst, I think the mantra as a parent that I would always say is, this is the end of this, and this behavior is going to go away. And I'm not going to have to deal with this. This is, the big storm before it all gets quiet. And that's what I would be thinking to myself while we would just go through the motions of whatever we were looking, pretending to do, knowing that we were going to be at the ready for whatever needed to happen, but not giving into it. Not giving into it. Okay, we'll talk more about that. If it's not abundantly clear to you, hang on, because when you see it in your child, you go, oh, that's that thing that Shannon was talking about. It gets better, or it gets worse before it gets better, but it will get better. You just got to ride the storm. Okay, we always have a question of the day too, and our question of the day is meant to get you thinking, meant to get you participating in the conversation. A lot of you have taken to answering this question on Facebook, and what I love about that is that you get to see each other's answers, whatever time of day it is that you check in, and you're talking to each other, and that's a wonderful thing. You're supporting each other, you're shoring each other up. That's exactly what I love to see happening. So today's question, we asked, sort of like yesterday we asked the bad question, what makes you the angriest about autism? And we vented and we all got it off our shoulders. So today it's time to wish a little bit and be on the positive side. If you could wish anything, what would you wish for your child? What's your deepest hope for your child? Pie in the sky, don't worry about, worrying about if it's plausible or possible, because it's all possible. I got to tell you, stick around. It's all possible. So what's the thing that you wish for? I have shared before that the thing that I've held in my mind from probably the second day after my son was diagnosed, because the first day was the grief, right? But from the second day, because I couldn't stay in that square for very long. I'm not good at the grief. I can get angry and I can get motivated and I can take action, but I can't stay in the grief for long. I don't know about you guys. And so the image that I had in my mind that was very clear and has remained with me is standing with my child when he is 18 years old, and that he's graduating from high school, and in my vision, and I know this doesn't make sense, and because you're not in a cap and gown going off to college. It happens a couple of months later, but in my vision, this is how it is, because it's symbolic, that he's in his cap and his gown, he's graduated from high school, that I stand there with him, I look him in the eye, and he's, of course, taller than me, because he's going to be, and I say to him, I'm so proud of you, and, we did everything that we could for you, and I'm so excited for you, and that, he turns to go away to college, and that he's ready and happy and excited to go on that adventure. That's my vision, and that's what I wish for my child, that he goes off to college without impediments. Now, I will tell you that the big joke in my family is that I'm going to be in the car right behind him, getting an apartment around the corner from him. It's not like I'm letting him go, right? But that will be because of me, not because of autism. That he won't need me, that it's me that needs him. That's our big joke. And I'm quite certain that will be the way of it. And what's lovely is that when I started having that vision and that wish and that dream for my son had no idea what college was, wasn't responding to his own name, couldn't say a sentence. There was no reason to believe in that. But I did, because quite frankly, it was what made it possible for me to get up out of bed. And now my son talks about how when he goes to college and which college he's going to go to and what he's going to study, because he's going to be a rocket scientist, and the kinds of things that he's going to do at college. And that's just such a luscious thing. It's one of those things that makes me happy to the very tips of my toes. So I think it's good to wish. I think it's okay to wish, and I give you permission to wish. There's no calories involved. Wishing does not cause cancer. And it doesn't cause weight gain, so why not? It's free. Let's take a minute to wish today and to put it out there. Nobody's going to come back in 20 years and go, well, that didn't happen. Or if they do, we don't want to talk to them anyway. So what are you wishing for your child? Pie in the sky? There's no limit whatsoever. Tell us what you're wishing for, and we'll check in later on Facebook to see the kinds of wishes that you have for your kids. Can't hurt to put it out into the universe, right? Okay, it's a wonderful thing. And we always have a topic of the day. The topic of the day, we filter everything that we talk about through this topic. A lot of times we use today's topic because I think it's so important. ABA for beginners. I know that some of you are tuning in and you're brand new to ABA, and I want to make things as clear as possible for you to help you to get started. And I know that some of you are tuning in and have been doing ABA for a while, and others of you are ABA veterans. And all I can tell you is that I don't think it matters where you are in this journey, but it's always helpful to get a little refresher. My son had 5 years of intensive ABA before he graduated last year. We're still doing ABA in our home because I use the skills program at home with my son. And I gotta tell you, it's good for me on a daily basis to have a little bit of a refresher to remind me, because I get into something and I'll react in a certain way, and then I'll be thinking, and it might be right then, or it might be an hour later or a week later, and I'll go, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't think of it in terms of this for ABA, because this could have been so much simpler. So it's always good to go back to basics. It can never hurt to go back to basics. And so we'll be filtering everything that we talk about today a little bit through that, and hopefully make it helpful for all of us. And our schedule today, we're going to be talking about a wide variety of topics. We're going to be talking about play and how we can be more effective in teaching our kids to be interactive in play. We're going to be talking about team building. We are going to have the wonderful and fabulous Evelyn Gould, who's a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst. She's going to be joining us at the 10 o'clock hour. And Evelyn is so wonderful. We haven't had the opportunity to have her in for a couple of weeks. She was on vacation, then I was on vacation, but I love the fact that she gives parents permission to be where they are in a given day. She understands the fact that every day we are not going to get it right. I just love that. She's very practical in the tips that she gives for parents and helps us to get ourselves in a place where we can deal with the stress, that we can show up and be the best possible ABA practitioner, therapist on any given day without beating ourselves up for being where we are in that given day. So that is a wonderful, wonderful gift. I always feel better after I talk to Evelyn. She's going to be with us during the 10 o'clock hour. I think we're going to be talking about behavior intervention plans, but I'm not 100% sure. And then during the 11 o'clock hour, because it's Wednesday, we will be doing our special segment, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My wonderful co-host for that hour is the fabulous Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson. She's the executive director of Autism Care and Treatment Today, a wonderful charity. If you're not familiar with them, oh my gosh, am I so happy to introduce you to the concept of ACT Today. You want to visit their website, www.act-today.org. They're an organization that raises money and delivers money to families for the things that they need. Yes. So if you're a family in need, if it's a fence that you need, if it's ABA that you need, if it's testing that you need done, whatever it is that you need to be able to help your child, you can write to them. They're accepting grant applications right now. They have given away, I believe, over $500,000 to date directly to families. If you ask if what your child needs is an iPad, they've granted so many iPads. They grant scholarships to CARDI Learning and Skills. It's a wonderful organization, and it's something that we talk about from time to time because I know so many of you think, oh, if only I had the money to do X, Y, and Z. Apply for a grant from ACT Today. And if you don't need the funds to be able to do things, I'm so happy for you. But there are lots of ways that you can help ACT Today to raise money for other families, including military families. And we're going to be talking about that today. They had a big run on Saturday. There was a fundraiser for military families who have a child with autism in their family. So Nancy's going to be telling us about that today. And we also have a special guest today. Areva Martin from the Special Needs Network is going to be with us again today. She is one fierce autism mom, and she's an advocate, attorney, author, and the founder of the Special Needs Network. They're getting ready this weekend to do a huge event. So Areva's going to be with us via Skype during the 11 o'clock hour to tell us more about that and what they're doing, to help families in need. It's really exciting. Even, it's not just about making sure that, because we know that there's so many different aspects to this, right? It's not just about the child, it's about making sure that the parents can make an income while they're helping to take care of their child. And Areva's really on the cutting edge of helping people to be able to do that. So you're going to want to be here during the 11 o'clock hour. She's going to be right around 11:15, so you're going to want to tune in for that. A big day today. Very exciting. Lots to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about interactive play and how we can help our children to find that reinforcing. So stick with us. Back in a minute.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, to celebrate you is greater now that I can. You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, The only way I can sum up card all of you is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering love and commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with cardio isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back. That was Nick Yates that you just saw, an incredible young man. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, off at college, living his life, doing his thing. That wish that I had for my child, and he's living it. Boy, he's such an inspiration to me. And if you want to watch that interview, you can. It's on YouTube and it's on Blip, so take a look at that. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about play skills and how important they are. When we're talking about ABA and working with our kids, I mentioned during the last segment that principle number one is that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing. And I like to think of what's the payoff? What's the paycheck, right? Isn't that what Dr. Phil says? What's the payoff? Everything that people are doing, there's got to be a payoff for it, right? Well, that's true of behaviors that we want to decrease, right? The challenging behaviors that our children have, there's some sort of payoff. And the behaviors that they do that we want to increase, we need to make sure that there's a payoff. Otherwise, they're not going to continue to do them. We wouldn't continue to do it. Well, a lot of times when parents start with ABA, there's so many different things to be worked on. I really encourage you to look at the skills program. That's what I'm using at home. And it's got 8 different curricula areas, and it breaks it down in a way that's really user-friendly for a parent. You don't have to guess. You take an assessment. It tells you what is a good place to start working with your child, but it lets you customize it for your individual lives. The thing that's always interesting to me is that parents tend to gravitate to sort of the big guns, curriculum-wise. They'll go, oh, well, we want to work on the language skills and we want to work on the social skills because we know that that's really, really important. And I in no way want to say that it isn't important. Those things are really important. But I want to also let you know that working on the play skills is really important too. Because when we work on play skills, first of all, I always like to think of it as the fishing parable that, you give a man a fish and you fed him for the day, but if you teach a man to fish, then you fed him for his entire life. Well, if we can work on play skills with a child and get the child to find them reinforcing, we've helped that child to find joy for their entire lives and sometimes find an entree into things that are really exciting to them and a way in which we can work on things. Because if it becomes reinforcing for them, it opens up a whole other world of possibilities. We're looking to do the really hard things by finding things that are reinforcing. Well, if we can start with play and make play reinforcing, it's going to help us to do everything else. Not only that, if a child can play and play well, it's going to help them with their social skills. And if a child can play and play well, it's going to give them the opportunity to play and work out problem solving in a really safe environment. So I'm a big fan of the play skills and of the play skills curriculum in the skills program. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is interactive play, because it's one of the different areas that our children need to work on. If we look at a child who's been recently diagnosed with autism, a lot of times we'll see that that child is playing by themselves. They're not playing with other children. Now, of course, there is an age range in which that's typical for all children, but even for very small children that are typically developing, even if they're playing by themselves, they will check in with someone else, like a mom or a dad or a babysitter or a nanny, to see, to express, look what I'm doing and look what's happening. And that becomes a triangle of attention that's really important for a child's development. So when we have a child who's on the autism spectrum and they're playing by themselves, we want to, first of all, it's great that they're playing at all, because we cannot assume that children on the spectrum are going to find play reinforcing to begin with. For some of them, it's boring. And so that there's absolutely no reinforcement to it. For some of them, it feels like work. We can all relate to that, right? There are certain apps and certain games that I look at and I go, I just don't find this reinforcing. Well, I don't get it. My son just downloaded on my phone the other day Ant Smasher. I don't know if you've seen this app, and I hate to diss an app because he loves it, thinks that it's great fun, that he pushes the screen and he smashes the ant. And he desperately wanted me to play it with him the other day. I said, okay, let's play the Ant Smasher. And I played for 5 minutes and said, really, there's nothing exciting to me about this. It's not reinforcing to me. He loves it. It's not my thing. Now, there are other games that I enjoy playing that he says, I don't get it. So different things for different people, right? And our kids with autism, sometimes they look at the vast majority of what's really fun and reinforcing for us or for other kids, and they, it's boring or it's work. Or in some cases, if there's a sensory component to it that's overwhelming, it can be painful for our kids. Now, I think the tendency as a parent is to not want to push things like that because it could lead to challenging behavior. But we need for play to be reinforcing for our kids for all the reasons that I was just saying before. Because if we can make it reinforcing for them, it's going to add to the joy of their life. It's going to help them with social skills. It's going to help them with cognition. It's going to help them with executive functions. It's going to help with motor skills. It's going to help with language skills. So we really want them to find it reinforcing. And we'll talk throughout the show about how, there are different elements of play. But today I wanted to talk about interactive play. And we can start with interactive play very early. And we want to work on making it reinforcing. So when we think about early interactive games that we play with children, things like peekaboo and reading nursery rhymes and telling stories, things like patty cake, those kinds of things. Those are early interactive games. And I know already I say to myself, yes, but this can be really painful for the parents too, because I love babies. I just love babies. And it's always been a thing with me that I have a little game that I play with patty cake that's a little bit different than everybody else's. And it's one of my great joys. You hand me a baby at a party and I'm thrilled to sit there and play patty cake with them and see their reactions to it, right? Then I had this beautiful baby, and for a while, my baby, I could sit there and play the patty cake with him and we just laugh. So much fun. And then whatever happened, and then my baby, I could do the patty cake game with him. He wouldn't look at me, be looking off someplace else. He would cry and struggle to get off my lap. And it was painful to me. It was painful. And so I stopped doing it. I stopped doing it because emotionally I was like, something is wrong. And why can I connect with all these other babies and I can't connect with my own child to play this game? And he doesn't find it reinforcing, so I thought it was best to give up. But what I've learned over the years is that we can make it reinforcing for them. We just have to add an extra step that we didn't have to do with the other children. The other children found it automatically reinforcing. For our kids, we have to pair it with something that actually is reinforcing to our child. Now, for each child, that's going to be entirely different. So it gets a little dicey to be able to talk about, well, what can you do to make it reinforcing? We have to figure out what's reinforcing to our individual child. If it is Thomas the Tank engine that's reinforcing to your child, then yes, you're going to sit there and you're going to play patty cake with the child. And when you do something that you want them to find reinforcing and they participate, you're going to bring in Thomas the Tank, right? And that's how you're going to make it reinforcing. If the child likes tickles, you're going to tickle them, right? If the child likes attention, then you're going to give attention in the way they like the attention. It really becomes the think outside the box part, and the difficult part, I think, is getting your head wrapped around figuring out what your individual child finds reinforcing. And the only way that you're going to do that is through trial and error. And, you know, there's something called a preference assessment and you're conducting that not while you're working on the other thing. So before you start to do the patty cake, you would sit down on the floor or wherever, on the couch, wherever the child is comfortable, and see what gets a reaction out of them. So you might tickle the child and see, does the child at all acknowledge and look at you and smile, or, you know, give any kind of a sign that this feels good to them. You're going to see that with some children, they're not having it. It's not on, and don't push that, because that's not what we're working on, although we can work on that another time to make tickles reinforcing by pairing it with something else. You may already, because usually there's at least one thing that our children will gravitate towards. If it's a food, in the beginning when we're working on things, it's, you know, we're really going, okay, what have I got in my arsenal? And keeping track of, here are all the different things that I have to choose from. Well, the child loves potato chips. Yep, potato chips, not the healthiest thing, not what we want to spend the rest of our lives on, but in the beginning, if that's what the child really, really loves, then that's where we're going to go. We're going to do the smallest amount of potato chip we can for each thing, but it may be that we sit there and we go through the motions of patty cake. The child is not enjoying it, but we go through the motions and you get a potato chips. Yay! And we're always going to pair it with praise and excitement. The child might find that overwhelming in the beginning, but eventually we're going to be able to fade the potato chip and do the yay. And then eventually we're going to fade the yay so that they just find it reinforcing. I know it sounds crazy. Guess what? It works. It works. It worked with my child. We're going to see in a few minutes at the top of the hour, we're going to watch the A words. You're going to see that it's working with Jack Riley, and it's worked with thousands of other children too. The key is that we got to figure out what's reinforcing to the individual child, and we're going to very systematically set up an experience where the child is sitting there, we're doing the patty cake, or whatever it is, the interactive game, and immediately after we're able to do it, and we might be prompting, of course, with patty cake, you're usually prompting anyway through it, although you get to the point where you fade that as well, but we might be prompting the child through it, and then we reinforce, and yay, all at the same time, very quickly. So it's not as though we do the patty cake, pause, let me go to the refrigerator and, you know, get the whatever it is that I'm giving as, no. It's all got to be right there, immediate. So the child starts linking all of those things together. We can do that with literally anything. We just have to be prepared, get our materials together, know exactly what we're doing, and be prepared to focus on that. That we're going to do whatever the thing is and pair it with praise and whatever the reinforcement is. And over time, we will first fade whatever the reinforcement is, and we can, if it's appropriate, fade out the praise too, so that we end up with a child who's reinforced. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful thing when we can get a child to start interacting with play. It opens a door to so much else. It's going to help with eye contact. It's going to help with social skills. It's going to help with all of the play skills. It's going to help with cognition. It's going to help with executive functions. It's a fabulous thing. And we have a more happy, joyous child. So a wonderful thing to think about. Start looking at your child and saying, okay, make a list of all the things that you think your child finds reinforcing, and then try them out. Try them out. You can put out 3 toys and see if the child has no words, you can just see which one do they pick up. And if they don't pick up any of them, guess what? Those aren't the toys that are going to be reinforcing. I've said before that when my child was little, I would stick his happy little tush in a shopping cart and take him to the toy store with no intention of buying anything on the first time, but I would we would walk down the carts, and anything he would even look at, and eventually that he would point at or reach for, but in the beginning there was no pointing and no reaching, but anything that he would even remotely look at, I would pile into the cart, and he could take whatever he wanted in the cart and play with it. Most things now are all tied down in a package, but you have access to like playing with it. And I would walk around that store for 2 hours and let him play with things and see what he would keep playing with, what he would gravitate towards back to what he really wanted. And then I would put it all back, right? Which taught him, by the way, that you don't always get a toy when we go to the store. And I would come back a second time, and if he wanted to play with it a second time, that's the toy I would buy. And that's the toy that we would use for reinforcement for different things. So, or that's the toy I'd go and find online used, because money's an issue, right? Okay, so, but we can make play reinforcing. We can't assume that children find play exciting. The other bonus as a parent is when your child enjoys play, eventually they will go and play, and you will get a couple of minutes of rest, a couple of minutes to regroup, get yourself together. It's a very good thing. Stick with us. We're going to be back in just a few minutes.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. What's an institution? A hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, you know, make simple desire requests, I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I want to introduce to you today's segment on the A word. This is a wonderful documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who is not yet 3 years old, was diagnosed with autism, and has begun his journey through autism with ABA therapy. And not only do we get to see Jack Riley and how he's doing and the actual therapy and some of the, you know, we're not seeing all of the therapy, of course, but some of the nuts and bolts of the therapy that's happening and why it's happening and the arc of how he's learning things. But we're also getting to hear from the parents about the emotional side of this journey. Because let's face it, this is one tough ride. It's very emotional. Even when your child starts to make progress, you know, this is intensive. It's an all-in kind of proposition. And these parents, these brave parents, have allowed us into their home to see what's happening with their child, to see what's happening with them. And they're talking with us freely about what it feels like. And I find it very exciting, and I'm a little addicted to it. I'm just going to be honest about that. But I love it for so many different reasons, and there's so much to talk about. I especially want you to look, because we just talked about play skills, I want want you to watch this little boy, the segment when he finishes his puzzle, because you will see him being excited before anything else happens that he finishes his puzzle. This is because if you watch some of the early episodes, you'll see that he did not find doing a puzzle reinforcing, that it was not exciting when he finished the puzzle, but they have appropriately paired the right reinforcement and faded it so this little boy finds play and playing with a puzzle exciting all on its own. So take a look at the A word.
He's a happy, fun kid, and he was a happy, fun kid when he was diagnosed too, and I don't think at the time we really understood that you can be happy, fun, and still have autism. He's sort of giving us a hint that we don't need to worry so much, that he'll conquer whatever it is that he's dealing with.
Uh-oh, that could be interesting. Oh no, the duck fell. You're okay.
It's okay, buddy. Daddy will hold it. Let's try again. Try again.
I know that it's very important to him, whether he knows it or not, that he has both of us in his corner. So for the dads, that's all I would say, is be in his corner, do the best you can, and if you screw up, just be involved. You're going to make mistakes, but just be involved. It's not going to go away, and quite frankly, you're way more valuable to helping him than you think you are in the beginning. There were times I thought I'm useless, and that's gone away.
He does when he sees doors and books. Knock, knock, knock. Ding dong, ding dong. Hello. Hello. Don't you? Hello. Who is it? Hello. Good night, friends. I'm sleepy too. Wake up. Wake up, but I'm sleepy. Wake up.
He's just really clever now. More creative when he's playing. He solves little issues or problems that get in his way, and he just smiles a lot while he's doing it, so if we think he's enjoying it.
Yeah, you also bubble to top. Oh my God! Yes! Oh my goodness, that was so impressive. Good job.
We added a new program, Gaining Attention, because we've been noticing that he wants our attention, but he'll like throw things or doesn't know appropriately how to get your attention. So we're going to be teaching him to tap our shoulder as well as call our name when he wants our attention.
Twice.
This is Jessica's first attempt in teaching Jack Riley how to gain attention. At first, Jessica tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the entire way so he can practice and learn an appropriate way to gain attention.
Look, do you want the fire truck? Look, that's what I have. You want it?
Yes.
Okay, do this, look. Say Jessica. Good job, try again, ready? Ready? Say Jessica. Say Jessica. Oh, what do you want? Oh, okay, here you go. There you go. Okay. Do this.
As Jack Riley learns how to gain attention, Jessica's prompts will fade until he does it independently.
You want to try again?
Right there.
Okay. Yes? Yes? What do you want? What do you want? Oh, there you go. That was very good, Jack. Yes? Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's good, mister. You're getting better at that. And we also added a program called Inhibition, when mom or dad are doing things like getting the mail or getting things from the car. He's had episodes where he'll just run.
Wait.
Wait.
Stop.
Wait.
Wait. No, wait.
If this is as bad as it gets, and we've caught it, then we're great. I think what I didn't realize is that there's always going to be new things that he's going to encounter. There's always going to be new behaviors that he discovers, and that's part of being a kid, as well as the autism.
No. Thank you.
This way.
We can go in this.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are here with the fabulous Evelyn Gould. I'm so excited that you're back and that I'm back, and it's wonderful that you're here in the studio because I get to talk to you for a couple of minutes. It's very selfish of me, but, but I'm thrilled to see you. It has been a while. It has been a while. Did you have a lovely vacation?
I did, thank you. I saw my family and it was really lovely.
That's wonderful.
And then I got sick as well, which wasn't so much fun.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think everybody's had a turn with it, or a couple of turns with it. But I'm glad we're both here and better and back on our new Autism Live. We've made some changes, but we have not changed.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. But we have not changed the fact that you're with us on Wednesdays at 10, and that's one of the most exciting things about it. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about here in the United States, it's IEP season, which is its own little thing. And we're going to talk a lot about that in the next coming weeks. But I wanted to talk with you about BIPs, about behavior intervention plans. And this is something that I think that we don't talk about enough, and that parents tend to, our eyes glaze.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
And yet it's one of the most important aspects of our children going to school, as far as I'm concerned. So tell us what a BIP, or a BIP, as a lot of us like to call it, is.
A BIP is a behavior intervention plan, and it's basically a plan, an official plan that's drawn up that's supposed to direct everyone on that child's team to what to do, to how to deal with any challenging behaviors that have been identified and assessed.
Right. And what's really important to me about that, there have been so many stories in the news in the last few months about things happening at schools and parents being outraged and teachers losing their jobs because the teacher was responding in a way that wasn't appropriate for the child. And my question always is, what was on the BIP? What was on the BIP? And as parents, I think we get outraged about all this, but we all need to know what's on the BIP. I need to go back and look at my child's BIP and say, what is on here? And are the people on my child's team, A, aware of what's on there, and are they trained properly to be able to do the BIP?
Yeah, I think there's two parts there, which you've just highlighted. First of all, everyone needs to know what the official BIP is. Everyone needs to be familiar with it, and they are supposed to follow those guidelines. And then also that they've been provided with training. I think a big problem is if you just hand someone this piece of paper and you don't walk them through it and they don't have enough training, it can be very difficult for people to follow guidelines, especially in the moment of dealing with a challenging behavior. We all know what we're supposed to do in an earthquake, but when an earthquake actually happens, are we actually going to follow those directions if we haven't been walked through it and we haven't rehearsed and we haven't practiced? Because we know, you know what card we do earthquake practice, and we all have to like walk ourselves through the whole process. We have to know where we're supposed to find the snap lights and all that kind of thing, and that's supposed to help us. And I feel like the stories that you're talking about that have been in the news, it's possibly a training issue, not just the fact that they maybe didn't have the BIP. They may have had the BIP, but maybe they didn't have the training.
Absolutely, and I do think that that's an important element of it, but it starts with, I think, the parents understanding what the piece of paper is and where it is, because in the United States, it is supposed to be attached to the IEP. There's a place on the first page of the IEP that is a little box, and it says BIP attached, and that box should be checked, and there should be a BIP there, and if there isn't one there and that box isn't checked, we need to ask that question. Now, I will tell you quite honestly that my child was in school for 2 years before I was told that. that at one point I was upset about the way somebody was dealing with somebody that was a peripheral person, and I said, well, so what is the plan? What is the plan for handling this? And somebody said, well, the BIP says, and I said, the who, the what, the where, and I had not made sure, because I was working with CARD had made sure that there was a BIP, but I, as a parent, had not made sure that it was attached to the IEP. It was there in his file, but it had not been attached to the IEP, so the peripheral people had not seen it and did not understand it. So we have to take on that responsibility as a parent of knowing what the BIP is, where it is, and that everybody has had access to it. But the training thing is a whole other issue.
That's a whole other deal.
So, but tell us a little bit about how you arrive at a BIP. Who does the BIP? How do you get there? What are the steps to have a BIP?
So a behaviour intervention plan can only be put together once an assessment has been done, or should only be put together once an assessment has been done, so that the specific behaviours that are challenging for that particular child have been identified and prioritised, and then a functional assessment should have been done. So once you know the function of the behaviour, so why is that behaviour happening, that's when you can draw up a behaviour intervention plan, because the behaviour intervention plan must be matched to the function of the behaviour and the specific behaviour that's happening. You can't, there shouldn't just be a drawer full of BIPs that you just slap onto an IEP for, the child's hitting, here's the BIP. It's got to be formulated based on a functional assessment.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
No, it's not going to be
Johnny's got a BIP for hitting in Mrs. Watsett's room, so we're going to use that for Suzette, who is hitting, and Mr. Johnson's room.
That's not going to be effective. It's got to be individualized, because you could have two kids who are showing the same behaviour, both hitting, but they're doing it for very different reasons, and so you've got to have a behaviour intervention plan that addresses those reasons and is very tailored to the child and the behaviour.
So there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all for a BIP. And you talked about a functional assessment needs to be done before. So for instance, for a parent who's sitting there right now and saying, okay, I didn't know that there was a BIP, but my child is kicking in the classroom. The first thing that I would ask is that you go and look at your IP and see if there is a BIP attached and if it is for kicking. If it isn't, though, that's when you want to ask for an FBA to be done, yes?
I think so. I mean, you are probably, if you know about the behaviour, then obviously the teacher must know about the behaviour, assuming so whatever behaviours that are really interfering with your child's learning and your child's functioning at school, those are the things that need to be assessed.
Yeah, I think, though, a lot of us assume that the school system will take care of it, that they will recognize the challenging behavior, that they will institute a process, and that the child will be assessed, and that the BIP will be written, and then it'll be carried out. And in my experience, with all the parents that I talk to, that is not how it's usually parent-driven. And I will tell you that I think a part of that is because it used to be the schools that did it, but now there are so many kids that it's the squeaky wheel.
I would say that it's probably because resources are so stretched right now that there's probably, they need to have someone who's qualified enough to be able to carry out an FBA, and that person probably is in charge of overseeing FBAs for a whole bunch of kids. Imagining, I don't know, I'm not that familiar with the school system here, but I'd imagine that that's part of the problem. So unfortunately, that may mean that they will wait until there's a real push or pressure to carry out an assessment.
Yeah, and you have the legal right as a parent to ask for it. If your child is engaging in challenging behavior, the very first question that you want to ask is, has a BCBA looked at this? Has an FBA been done? I know there's probably new words to you, but it is your legal right to ask for that, and you want to ask for that because your child's placement is in danger. If they can't get that challenging behavior under control, they're going to be moved to a different classroom. And that does not have to be. So we ask for the FBA, all these letters we get into. So the FBA stands for?
Functional Behavior Assessment.
Okay, and the BCBA stands for?
Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
Okay, and are all BCBAs specifically trained in autism and challenging behaviors with autism?
No, they're not. Not all BCBAs have a specific experience in dealing with children with autism. They may have other experience, but you really want someone who knows the ins and outs of autism specifically to deal with your kid.
So my thing always for parents is anytime that your child is starting school or at the start of the new school year while you're not having a problem, or when you're meeting with somebody before the school year, or at the IEP before the next school year, ask who's the BCBA on staff and what is their experience, because you're not ask it when it's non-adversarial. Just, so who's the BCBA if we have an issue that we want to contact. But anytime your child is engaging in challenging behavior.
Yeah, the other thing I just want to remind people is that challenging behavior doesn't just mean aggression.
Right.
So, if you're very concerned that your child's engaging in any kind of behavior that's really interfering with their learning and their placement in school, then that needs to be assessed. So just because your child isn't hitting the teacher or self-harming doesn't mean that it isn't an important behavior. If your child's engaging in like a lot of stereotypy or engaging in some other kind of not so intrusive to the classroom behavior, but it's really interfering with their ability to sit in their chair and attend to the teacher, then that's still a challenging behavior that's important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be thinking, oh, my child's behavior isn't serious enough to ask for this. That's not the case. You should ask. If it's concerning to you, then it's concerning enough to be addressed.
Really good point. Let's take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about the process that an FBA is and how a BIP gets written, and we're also going to let you know that there is a really new, exciting tool that you can have access to that will help you to be a really effective member of a team writing a BIP. So stick with us. We're going to be back with Evelyn Gould in just a minute.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. Skills was designed to equip educators of children with autism everything they'll need to get their students on the right track towards recovery. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and our special guest right now is the wonderful and fabulous BCBA Board-Certified Behavior Analyst, Evelyn Gould. Thank you so much for being with us. And we're talking about BIPs. We're talking about behavior intervention plans, and before the break, we were talking about the fact that you can request if there's a challenging behavior, and that there's a whole host of what challenging behaviors can be. It can be anything that's preventing your child from accessing the curriculum. You can request of your school to assess it and figure out what the function of the behavior is. So you were saying that's an FBA, and that hopefully almost all schools now have a BCBA attached in some way to the school, that hopefully that would be the person that would do an FBA. So tell us what it, oh, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I think in some areas, maybe it's only outside the States, but sometimes there isn't a BCBA, but there's an assigned behavior support person or behavioral, I'm not sure, they have different titles, but they're specifically in charge of conducting assessments, I think, I believe.
Right, and in some cases it might be the school psychologist,
it might be,
but good to identify who is the person who does the FBA, and that's a term that they should know, FBA.
Yes.
And if they don't, cause for concern. Right there. Big cause for concern. But okay, so you've requested the FBA, and to educate us so that we know what it is that we're asking for, what will happen in it, because I know, because I've requested them before, that you'll have to sign a piece of paper saying it's okay to do the FBA. So what exactly is it that should be done for an FBA?
Well, if it, I am not sure exactly what the legality, kind of the boundaries of that are, but basically it just involves whoever's in charge, the BCBA or whatever, going in and assessing your child's behaviour, observing your child's behaviour, probably asking the teacher and possibly yourself to fill out questionnaires regarding the behaviour, and all with the aim of, and collecting data, all with the aim of identifying why your child is engaging in that specific behaviour, and that's the function.
Right.
So what is the function of the behaviour? And I think that's general, the overview of the process. And I'm not sure, I mean, it could take, depending on the behaviour, it could take a short time or a long time.
But there has to be at some point that they observe the child in order to take the data. So they're going to take a survey, but they're going to observe the child as well, right?
They're probably going to involve, they may come in and take the data themselves. They may ask the teacher to take data, the teacher's aide to take data. It depends on what the system is, but yes, someone has to be observing the behaviour and recording data regarding that behaviour, usually ABC type data. What happened before the behaviour, what the behaviour is, and what happened after the behaviour, and then that would be supplemented with things like questionnaires, surveys, and so on, to everybody who's kind of involved with that child. And then the psychologist or the BCBA will look at all of that information and come up with a hypothesis about what they think the function of the behaviour is based on that information.
Okay, because every behaviour has a function.
Yeah. behaviors don't happen out of the blue or for no reason. We do everything we do for a reason. We even stuff that seems to be out of the blue definitely has a function behind it.
Right. And so, and especially a behavior that's happening over and over and over again.
Exactly.
There's definitely
and if it's happening over and over again, it's happening because it's working in some way, and that ultimately that's what we mean by the function. Like, we keep doing things because we're getting something out of it, even though on face value to us that might make no sense at all. Like, we can't understand why a child might hurt themselves. It's like, that makes no sense.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it is rewarding to that child in some way, whether it's that they're communicating that they want something and then they're getting that thing, or whether it just feels good to them, or whether it's allowing them to escape something they want to avoid. Everything has a reason.
Right. And this is one of my big issues right now, and everybody that I talk to, I'm finding more and more people who go, yeah, but that's true of some behaviors, but then there's the stuff that's just autism. And that's just the stuff that we have to accept. And it's just behavior that's random, and it comes because of the autism. Whatever the autism is causing that behavior, and that's what it is. My child's not doing it for a reason. It's just autism.
Autism is not a reason or an explanation.
Right.
Autism means that your child probably has certain deficits or lacks certain skills that make them predisposed to having to engage in challenging behavior to get their needs met.
Right.
So if your child has autism, it possibly means that they're struggling with communication or having language to express what they want, and that makes you more predisposed to engaging in inappropriate ways of getting your needs met. So it's not the autism per se, it's the skill deficits usually that are causing the behavior. Or it could be, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. It could be that your child has some kind of physical pain, and therefore they're engaging in a behavior to try and escape that pain or express their pain. The child could just be having allowances made. I've seen that quite a lot. You know, sometimes a child can be just bratty, and it's not the autism, they're just getting away with stuff, because sometimes people make accommodations because they think, oh, the child has autism, so it's okay for them to get away with this, whereas if they had another child in their classroom, it wouldn't be okay.
Right.
And then that child learns, oh, I can get away with whatever it is by doing this behavior.
Right.
So it's not actually the autism. That doesn't really explain anything at all.
So is there any behavior that a child does, autism or other, that we just have to go, oh, well, it's just that behavior, and we just have to accept it and move on, and it's going to be that way, and we don't want to bother targeting that because that behavior is set in stone, and we can't work on that behavior?
No, that's not true at all. We can work on all behaviors. Of course, some behaviors are much more difficult to work with, but we can work with all behavior to try and decrease it. We may or may not be totally successful, but we can change any behavior once we know the function. If we don't know the function, then we're kind of stuck with what we can do because we don't know why the child's doing it. But once we know why the child's doing any kind of behavior, that opens up a whole kind of source of ideas for what we can do to change that behavior.
Right. And so let's say in the worst case scenario that the BCBA comes up with a hypothesis and says, this is what I think the function is, behavior is, and they create a behavior intervention plan, and we'll talk about that again in a second, but they institute it, and our, as you know, our phrase for the day, our jargon for the day was extinction burst. We might see a little period of time where the behavior gets worse before it gets better. But if that's the proper function for the behavior, we should see progress fairly quickly, yes?
If they've formulated an appropriate behavior intervention plan and they've matched the strategies in that plan with the function of the behavior, and everyone is implementing that behavior plan consistently, you should start to see a decrease in behavior.
So if you don't, then you got to back up and kind of look at things and say, is everybody actually implementing it correctly? Is everybody being consistent? Because if there's a leak in the hose, it's not going to work. But if it's still not working, you've made sure that it's consistent, then we don't have the right function, right?
Possibly, yeah. I think it's very important that parents know that if the behavior isn't decreasing, that it's not okay to just explain it away by autism or or blame the child, so to speak. The child's always right. And if the behavior's not decreasing, we're just not doing the right thing, or we're not doing the right thing consistently enough. Or, like you said, maybe we mismatched why the child's doing it, and so what we've been doing is totally the wrong thing.
Right.
So it could be any of those things. So it's just really important to remember, if it's not decreasing, that we don't just blame the child. We go and look at what we're doing, and that means re-examining the BIP, making sure everyone knows about the BIP and they're all doing what they're supposed to do. If they're not able to follow through the BIP, we need to look at why, and then maybe we need to make modifications to our behaviour plan. And if you've checked all of that and maybe you have got the function wrong, maybe you need to have a reassessment.
Yeah.
So all of those things need to happen.
Yeah. But there at no point, and it brings up an interesting point, because you said the child's not wrong. It's not the child's fault. But it's also not that you messed up either. No. It's not a guilt thing, like, oh, it's the parent's fault or it's the teacher's fault or whatever. It means that something needs to be changed. So it doesn't get into this whole thing about let's stop everything and point fingers.
Right. No, that's a waste of time. It's not helpful to anybody, because it doesn't really matter. Right. You just need to fix it.
Right. Yeah. So it's not, I just want to be clear that it doesn't make it sound like, oh, it's all your fault that this behavior is happening.
It's very, very important to think, like, if you haven't been able to be consistent, then why? And that's not like a blame reason, but it's like, if it's too difficult, if you're being asked, if a teacher's being asked to do something that is just impossible for them to do within the constraints of their classroom, or they just don't feel, maybe you've asked a teacher to deal with a behaviour that's frightening to them, or that they just can't, they're just overwhelmed by those. You need to look at those things. So it's not then change what you're asking people to do.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Not a blame game, but figuring it out, not giving up, because progress can be had if we have the right function of the behavior. But we need to do that functional behavior assessment before we can arrive at that right function of the behavior. And as you said before, we can't write the BIP unless we have the proper function.
Yeah, and also I think that, thinking about what we were just talking about a minute ago, whenever you're formulating a BIP, it's also important that the person doing it looks at the resources and who's going to be implementing it, and kind of an ecological assessment, sort of, because I know there's a bunch of strategies that are going to work, but I'm not necessarily going to assign them all once I know who's going to be doing it, because it's got to be feasible. Right. It's got to be doable. If it's not, it could be the best BIP in the world and look absolutely beautiful and be perfect, but if people trying to implement it just can't implement it for whatever reason, then it's not going to be successful.
Right. If it's something where you're asking somebody to do something one-on-one and they're responsible for 40 children, it's not going to happen. Even though it's beautiful on the paper, it's not going to be carried through. It can't be.
No, and equally, like, you can't always apply an extinction procedure like you talked about if that's going to cause someone to get hurt, or possibly the child to get hurt, or you just can't do it because the environment doesn't allow you to do it. All these things have to be considered as well as a function before you write your BIP.
Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to come back and talk about how the BIP actually gets written and how it matches to what the function of the behavior is. So stick with us, and we're going to be back with Evelyn Gould, BCBA, in just a moment.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that, they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest right now is Evelyn Gould, BCBA. We're so thrilled to have her back in the studio. And we've been talking about the ins and outs of behavior intervention plans. And that we have the right as parents and all year long, but especially it's IEP season. This is a really good time to pull out your IEP and look and see if there is a BIP attached. If your child is engaging in any challenging behaviors in the classroom, there should be. And it needs to be something that you understand and that your child's teacher understands, that if there's an aide, if there's a substitute, if there are any staff who are coming in the room, if there is a PE teacher, if there's an OT, if there's a speech teacher, everybody needs to be apprised of not only what's in the BIP, but how to carry it out effectively in the circumstances, the individual circumstances that they meet. So we've talked a little bit about asking for an FBA so that we can know what the function of a behavior is. And once we know the function of a behavior, who sits down to write the BIP usually?
That's a good question. In the American system, I'm not sure if it's usually the BCBA or if it's if a teacher ever does it. I'm not entirely sure.
And I think it depends. You know, it's kind of a loaded question that that sometimes the entire IEP meeting will sit down to meet, but usually it's driven by the BCBA.
I would imagine that it probably should be a BCBA or a psychologist, unless a particular teacher is like the head of the behavior support team or something, and they have experience in BIPs or they have some tools to help them. But I don't know. As I say, I'm not really that sure.
But as a parent, you can be a part of that process. And I encourage parents that if you have the time to be a part of that process in creating the BIP. But you were mentioning all the different things that go into writing the BIP, taking into account who is going to be implementing it, because that makes a difference. And
where it's going to be implemented. Is it just in the classroom? Is it outside in the playground? Is it all around the school grounds, so on? Is it a particular plan to manage the child when you have to go to an outing or something?
Right.
Yeah, you need to look at the setting and who's available, and maybe even looking at the classroom setup. Maybe that's going to affect the types of things that you're going to be able to do. Looking at the behaviour itself, is it a dangerous behaviour? You're not going to want to do certain things if it's going to put the child in danger, because you talked about the extinction burst earlier, and sometimes we just can't deal with an extinction burst. It's not safe,
right?
Really. Or it's just not manageable.
Right. Maybe sometimes it could be not safe for the child. Other times it could be not safe for the peripheral children.
Right. Or the teacher or whoever.
Exactly. And we can't have that. So really important considerations. I was sharing with Evelyn during the break that the recent news story, and I want to talk about it just briefly because we've talked about it before on the show, about why, this is just one of the many stories about why a behavior intervention plan and proper training are so important. That there was a story recently in the news about a substitute teacher who I believe has been fired over it, but the child was in the classroom and had a need to touch other children's ears and would go around and touch just the top of other children's ears. And I'm not 100% clear on all the ins and outs of the story, but with the typical teacher, there was an understanding amongst the teacher and the students in the class that the child was allowed to do this. I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that was what was permissible. And the substitute teacher came into the circumstance and just did not think that that was a good thing to be happening, and decided that she had a way that she was going to deal with it, as many people do. You know, I think people walk in with their assumptions of the world, and we've talked before about how we're a punishment-driven society. So, I'm shocked by it, but I'm not shocked by it. But what the teacher decided to do was to, anytime the child would touch another child's ears, she would go over and pinch the top of this child's ears and say, "How do you like that? That doesn't feel good, does it?" An intervention that we all have had a grandmother at some time do to us for something, you know, that if you hit a child, them hit you, but this is in a classroom setting with a child who has an autism spectrum diagnosis. Of course, the child comes home, the ears are all red and pinched, and the mother is upset about it, and I believe there have been lawsuits filed over it, and the teacher has been fired. But all of this really preventable with a BIP, yes?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you can't control what other people do, but you can help them and give them guidelines so they're more likely to do something that's effective and ethically appropriate.
Right.
That, you know, if they don't have access to that training and that information, then you really have no control over it at all.
Right. As a parent, well, I think to myself, well, if I've left somebody with the tools and the training and they haven't carried it out, then we have a different problem.
Yeah.
But if I'm standing there and going, why on earth did you do that? And the person says, well, I wasn't left any tools or training.
Yeah.
Then I feel like I haven't completely done my job as a parent. So that's why I'm so adamant that we talk about BIPs and that we all really take that on as something that's really important. It's going to make a difference in how our child is expected to be treated in a classroom setting.
Yeah, you really, really want to prevent people acting in the moment, because that's when the worst damage is done, because people are reacting to emotions and, feeling frightened or stressed or angry, and they're also just scrabbling for something to do in that moment, and that's when people make the biggest mistakes or are more likely to do something that's harmful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say, too, as an ex-classroom teacher, when you have guidelines to do something, it's infinitely easier. I think you feel less stressed, and I think that I want to be clear that I think that teachers, on the whole, are amazing people, that they are willing to be in the classroom for the pay that they get, to work with the numbers of kids that they do and the workload that they have. I think that the vast majority of them are saints walking on this earth. And I think that the vast majority of them appreciate tools and appreciate suggestions that work. They don't want to have their time wasted doing interventions that don't work. But if you can show them something that does work with a child and give them guidelines for it, I think the vast majority of teachers are excited by that and don't feel pressured by it. You are going to run into people who have the exact opposite response, and And those are people that I want to walk on the other side of the street from, because anybody who isn't excited about learning, I don't know why they're in the classroom. And there are those people, right? And we've heard more and more stories in the news, but you know, we do have recourse for that as well. And legally, if you are requesting in writing for a challenging behavior that an FBA be done, the school is going to have to comply. And if you say there is no behavior intervention plan, or the behavior intervention plan isn't proper on this document, they've got to do something about it. But there is some exciting news, and something that we just want to talk about briefly, that the skills program has created a behavior module to be able to help write BIPs.
Yeah, it's a tool that's just designed to help whoever's writing a BIP, walk them through the steps of choosing different interventions, with the hope that it helps them feel like less overwhelmed, and also build a more balanced BIP. And by balanced, I mean, like, we don't just want to have consequence strategies, so we don't just want to have strategies in there for when the child's already engaging in the behavior. We want to have strategies that are going to prevent it from happening in the first place, and then also strategies that are going to teach the child something. So we need to teach the child appropriate ways to get their needs met, because every behavior is communication of some form, and it's the child is getting some kind of need met by engaging in that behavior. So we need to teach them replacement behaviors. So a balance plan really needs to have all three of those things. It needs to have preventative strategies, it needs to have some replacement behavior strategies, some teaching strategies, and also some strategies for, well, if you can't prevent it and the child doesn't engage in the replacement behaviors, what are you going to do? So it needs to have all those three things. And the idea behind this BIP builder is that it will help you, walk you through choosing the most effective, or for your kid and your behavior, and the most effective strategies, and put them together.
And so regardless of where you are in terms of school, and they do have a requirement to be able to give you an FBA, and at that point, you know, and you really need to rely on them for that. If for some reason they're not, then it's time to get a lawyer. Or if you don't feel like the FBA is done properly, it might be time for you to call in a BCBA. But in any case, in most cases, the school is going to be able to arrive at a probable function. And if you've got that point, then you can come as a parent to the table with this BIP builder and be a part of the team, and know that you are, it's step by step. I think it's really simple.
And it's very simple. It simply asks you, you need to know, the thing is, you do need to know the function first. So you've gotta figure out the function of the behavior. And once you know what the behavior is and the function of behavior, then you're good to go. And you just put that information in there, and then the system will like walk you through a series of different questions. They're basically trying to figure out what's doable for you, and what do you want, what strategies do you think you want in there, as in what ones do you think are going to be able, you're going to be able to implement, or what suits your environment and that kind of thing. And it walks you through all the antecedent or the preventative strategies first, and then replacement behaviors, and also then consequence strategies that are all matched to the function of the behavior.
And I think it's a great way for you to, you know, if you're working with a BCBA, to kind of supercharge them, because they're human beings, and you don't know exactly what their experience is, but you're making sure it's going to help them, and it's going to help you to make sure that they have the best possible information to get all those things.
It's actually a great tool, just even to check for yourself, to just make sure there's nothing you forgot. Because it can be very easy, you know, to write a great BIP and then suddenly be like, oh, I didn't think of that, I forgot about that, I'll put that in. So
or I hadn't considered that intervention for this, or it's going to give you multiple different choices, walk you through all of it, so that you're going to have the peace of mind. This is a great tool for parents, and it's a great tool for teachers and administrators and clinicians, and it's a great thing as a parent. You can go and share this with your school and say, I'm here, we know what the function of the behavior is, here's this great tool, we can work on this together.
And it also is great because it allows customization. It actually, you have to customize it. So even though it's it's bringing out all these different suggestions for you. Once you actually put those together, you're going to have to customize it for your child, and you do that in the final stages.
Yeah. So it's not a cookie cutter. It's very customizable. There are so many different places where you get choices of input, and then when you make a choice, it'll ask you questions and say, did you consider this? Do you want to do this?
And it notices, you know, if you say, for example, we talked about extinction, sometimes you just can't use that procedure because of the behavior increase in the extinction burst. And it'll say something like, oh, we noticed that you said you can't implement an extinction procedure, so what you might want to do is consider A, B, and C.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of clever that way.
Yeah, it's incredibly clever. A really amazing thing, and that's it's called the behavior module. What is it called?
Behavior intervention module.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure.
But it's a part of skills.
Or BIP builder.
BIP builder. I think that's exactly what it's called. So a really exciting thing. What I love is that we're getting more and more tools as parents to go into IEPs and be empowered, not be in a place of feeling that we are at the whim of everybody else, and that we don't know what would actually be a good thing for our children. And you guys are empowering us to be able to do that. So I really appreciate that. As somebody who has to go into an IEP in a couple of weeks, I really appreciate that. Well, Evelyn, this has been absolutely wonderful, and you're going to be back with us next week, yes? Well, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be back here with you, and we'll have more topics. Helping parents, the thing that you help kids too, but I feel like it's even more important that you're helping us. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute with a short segment. And then don't forget, at the top of the hour, we're going to be here with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspaw-Jackson's going to be here, and we're going to be talking with Areva Martin, a wonderful author, advocate, and an attorney, and an autism mom. So stick with us.
My name is Monique Erickson. I'm a senior supervisor here at CARD in the training department.
What kinds of things should we take into consideration when working with preschool children?
Well, when you're working with preschool-age children, a lot of things you want to consider is, one, that they are little, so you are working with children who maybe their attention isn't as long as you might expect. You've got to work on that. They're young. They may be napping still, or probably in the process of fading that nap out, but that nap may be still there, and so that's definitely going to be a variable in their day when you are trying to plan when is the best time to do some of these lessons. So they probably have more time on their hands because they're not in school all day, but that doesn't mean, that nap might still be there, which would affect their scheduling of the day. What are their reinforcers, things like that you have to kind of consider for those children who are that age.
What kinds of reinforcement should we give?
That always is going to vary per child, so you have to kind of see what your child's into, but just the typical beginning play type toys. So if they're really starting out, they might be still doing some of those cause and effect puzzles type things and moving in then to more kind of constructive play. So some of those Legos of blocks and things like that, if that's what your child likes. Bubbles, some of the kids like music and things like that. You really just have to do an assessment of what does your child find interesting and fun, and incorporate those things.
Are there any secrets to keeping preschool children motivated?
Well, you have to do what I was just talking about, really find those things that they find fun and reinforcing, and that's going to be your key to finding motivation. So you have to find what do they want, and to start off at preschool, you may still be, especially if the child hasn't had anything prior to this, still working at those real tangible, maybe edible reinforcers to start off with, pairing those with other fun things, and then eventually getting rid of the foods and so forth. So you might have to what we call, establish some of those reinforcers, like tickles and bubbles and fun activities. They may have to start off with pairing those with some fun, the fun things with a Cheerio or something like that to start off, if that's what that child wants. But you have to have that motivation in place to get the learning going.
Is there a specific amount of time that they can work?
Well, I think that's really important to stop and think about that. They're little, you know, they can't be expected to, you know, sit and attend for a 3-hour session right out the gate. You know, they're little, they're going to need breaks, they're going to need frequent breaks during that session, and, you know, their attention isn't just going to, you know, you could schedule a 3-hour session, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the best use of their time, that they're going to really be able to maintain that time. So I really think you have to, you know, look at maybe doing 2-hour intervals or something like that, and just really decreasing or working up to, I mean, how far they can handle and stop there. So I wouldn't do more than probably 2 hours to start in one sitting.
How often should we give breaks to preschool children?
Well, when you're giving breaks to kids throughout your session, you know, every child's different, so it's going to completely vary on your child. You know, what is his ability to stay focused and attend to, you know, to the task. Hopefully you're building up as this goes, as they have more and more opportunities to practice that. You're going to find that over the course of time, the children are better able to attend and sit for some of these tasks. Early on, it's going to be difficult. So it's going to vary per child. In general, I mean, you might do an activity or two and then have them have a small break or so. It really just depends on the child. You might, you know, do several lessons with small breaks in between, then go for a bigger break outside and get some fresh air, move them around, get some gross motor in there. It just completely depends on the child and what are their targets. When can you allow natural breaks into the session that might lead themselves into the next thing that you want to work on. But it's just important to really read their body language. How are they doing? There's no point in continuing with lesson after lesson when they're fading. They need a snack, they need a break, they need to move around. You know, they're children. They need to be able to move and have some fun. The session should be fun, so they should be enjoying themselves.
How long should the breaks be?
The length of the breaks is just going to vary depending on your child and their ability to stay focused and how much of a break do they need. They're not extended. When I say a small break, I'm thinking, you know, we finished a tabletop activity, they go to the floor and have some downtime kind of. But when I say downtime, that doesn't mean I'm allowing them to fully engage in stereotypy or self-stimulatory behavior. Which might be something like lining up the cars or the blocks or something. It means that they're engaging in some kind of appropriate activity when they're on their own time. They're still being expected to utilize those skills that they're working on, but it's a break from, you know, a formal learning activity. So those are the small breaks I'm thinking of. Like when we do a couple learning tasks, they have a little bit of time to themselves, and then, you know, that allows me as the teacher to set up and get myself organized and get my next lesson plan ready. And then, you know, after several of those, you know, you might want to find somewhere in between, however long you plan on going, a bigger break, so that, you know, maybe, you know, they're little, they need snacks, they need to eat. Maybe it's time to go out and have a snack, and maybe that's just a pure break on its own, or maybe that's where you incorporate some adaptive targets you have, like, you know, learning how to pick up using your pincer if that's a target. You know, you can incorporate that into your snacks if possible, but you want to just make sure that they are getting, you know, frequent breaks and they're eating when they need to, so that they can be fresh and as alert as possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We wanted to take a quick minute before we start Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy to give you some of your wonderful responses. Love that you guys, boy, you show up and tell us exactly what you want. The question of the day was, what do you wish for your child? Somebody wrote in and says that he finds his voice. Another said self-esteem and true friends. Love it. To be treated fairly and become as independent as possible in this world of uncertainty. Oof, we've got poets here. A world he can fit into and be accepted for who he is. You're going to make me cry. That he is happy and he knows how much everyone loves him. Another person wrote in and said, I want people like me that all I have, I want people like me, and the person is saying, I have autism. Okay, another person who says, I wish for my son to be healthy, happy, know that he's loved, and is able to find his place in this world where many can't. Another who says, to be independent and happy, fabulous. I wish people understood why he is the way he is and accepted him just just like he is. Another person, for him to be as happy and as independent as possible, having a fulfilling life, and mostly be able to have friends and communicate better with people. He does pretty well, but hopefully will progress further for his benefit. Love it. And I wish all of these things for all of our kids too. Another who says, an independent, happy, and healthy life. I also would want my son not to be judged nor treated differently, but yet loved by many. Fabulous. Another who says, for him to talk. Yes. To be independent, happy, and strong-willed. Love that. For him to find acceptance and what his niche is in life. Okay, another person who says, I know this sounds horrible, but my wish for him is that he can learn to live in this cruel world the way we all have, because it won't change for him. Another thing is that when I first realized he was unable to speak, my first thought was that I will never hear him say that he loves me. Will I ever hear him say mama? That has changed over time. Now I just need to know that he knows that I love him. Yep, I'm going to cry. I know he loves me. He doesn't need to say it. He shows me every single day. I just need him to understand how much I love him. And you know what? I am going to bet that he does. Okay, another person who says self-acceptance and accepting of others as well. I wish this of myself too, still working on it. Love that. Aren't we all? For my children to have unlimited loving support along with happiness. You guys, I love this. You know what they say. You got to name it to claim it. It's coming. To have a happy, fulfilling, and safe life. Gotta love that. I worry for her safety and independence. I would also love for her to be able to communicate through speech with people too. She is very echolalic. Happiness and independence. Oh, you guys, you're just making me all a mess here. I wish for my son a very happy life with a lot of love. I hope he will be taken in charge soon. I am on a waiting list for 9 months. Oh my goodness. I am a single mom, so I wish him never to be left behind in the future years. I hope while you're on waiting list that you're using CARDI learning and skills. You can start today. Don't be waiting around. Another person who says, for my grandson, I wish him to be loved in happiness in all his endeavors. Amen. Another person who says, just for him to be more verbal, so I can know when something is bothering him, something he likes and dislikes. And that's all incredibly possible. Okay, and those are just some of the comments. Very moving. If we have time, and we probably are not going to have time, well, let me look at just a couple of more here, because I want to see on the other site. We have a couple of different places that you guys can post these. Okay. Happiness, success. Love this. Success and acceptance from society. Okay. Another person who, for his school to give him the education that he deserves. Another who says for him to be the best that he can be. We've come so far since he was diagnosed at 22 months, but we are certainly not done yet. He's 9 years old now and still progressing, and thank God his teachers along with a little help from mom and dad. Love it. Another person who says read and write, having friends, good relations with his peers, happy, health. Another who says independence, good self-esteem, happiness, and people like teachers to do their jobs at school and follow the IEPs, yes, and communicate with us, the parents, for once. It takes a village. We can't do this all on our own. You said it. And a couple of people said, I'm with her. I'm with her too. Okay. Okay, happiness, health, and for him to grow as an independent adult that by his example can show everybody that neurological diversity is great for kids on the spectrum and that kids on the spectrum can be perfectly integrated in society and successful. And another person who said to be able to do what his peers do. Okay, you guys, really amazing, and there are even more of them, but we got to take a break because in just a few minutes we're going to be back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got some really exciting topics to talk to you about. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is going to be joining us, the Executive Director of ACT Today. I know I spoke with her briefly yesterday, and has had a really amazing week, a couple of weeks that I can't wait to hear about, and I can't wait for her to share with you. That event that she did on the Intrepid for military families with Autism Speaks a couple of weeks ago. Some really amazing things going on with her. We're also going to be joined via Skype by Areva Martin, a wonderful author, advocate, and attorney who is the founder of the Special Needs Network and has got a really incredible event coming up this weekend that I want you to know about, because she's helping families in a way that's unique and exciting and really gets to the core of the kinds of things that we need. So I feel blessed because I'm going to be joined by these two incredible, powerful women, and I hope that you'll stay with us to hear what these two ladies have to say. Back in just a few minutes with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Stick with us.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago. Yeah. We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old. My husband called and said, "You need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now." So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, "Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again." I was like, that's it, you know.
He's a very fun, popular kid.
Rock star.
Rock star. He's a drummer. Quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy going.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya's made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained, started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public is holding our hands and just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Grandpa. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of GARD. I love all my GARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I first saw Dr. Grandpa speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. If he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pokorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pokorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was headbanging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with CARD, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why you're the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
CARD helped me to save.
I owe everything to you. Now, who built this?
I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes!
Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Oswald Jackson. It's good to be back. It's been 2 weeks.
Yes.
And wow, what has happened in 2 weeks in the autism world, right?
It's pretty amazing.
Yes, really shaking the foundation of the autism world.
Absolutely, lots in the news.
Everybody's heard, obviously, about the study by the CDC that the numbers are now 1 in 88. Yeah. This has caused a lot of discussion and controversy, right, Shannon?
Absolutely. I'm amazed at the things that are coming out of people's mouths in response to this.
I am too. I just want to start by reading something from, it was in the New York Times on Sunday, a whole-page article called The Autism Wars, and it said that this has the increase has been a lightning rod for those who question the legitimacy of the diagnosis, saying that the prevalence being doubled since 2007 is basically because of more diagnosis, not an increase in the problem. And someone on the New York Times website said another excuse for parents who want an out for why little Johnny is out of control. And here's another one. Just like all of a sudden in everybody had ADHD in the 90s, now everyone has autism. When I read this, it brought tears to my eyes because what my pediatrician said when I first called him right before Wyatt turned 3, and my neighbor suggested that Wyatt might have autism, when I called my pediatrician, he scoffed and he said, "Ha, autism, this is the latest trendy disorder of soccer moms."
Right.
Just like ADHD was. Well, my son did have autism.
Right.
Not only did he have autism, he had moderate to severe autism and could have been diagnosed easily. Now, I don't blame that pediatrician. He's a lot better educated now.
You're a better person than I am, Nancy, because I would be blaming him.
Well, I didn't blame him, but we're all walking our path that we need to walk, and because of the trouble my son went through and what I went through as a former television producer that is a born researcher, realizing that if I had this hard of a time, what's it like for the average person?
Yeah.
So what is your reaction, Shannon, your visceral reaction to all of this?
Well, there have been a couple of things that have happened this week and responses like this person's. And my response yesterday was, I wish people who don't know, who have not done research, who have not been in our homes, who have not seen our children, would just shut their pie holes. I wish that they would refrain from having an opinion.
Right.
Because I am not sitting here and saying, well, I know that the entire economy is just a fluke. This is just everybody's thing. This is just your excuse for...
I'm not sitting here saying diabetes is just an excuse for, when people say they have diabetes, this is just something fat people are saying for overeating. And this is as offensive as saying that.
And I want to know what these people's degrees are. Are they diagnosing children? Do they have a child in their home? Have they seen this happen? Because unless you are an expert, you need to shut your pie hole. That's just where, that's my technical term for it.
The other thing is that, it makes me mad too. And I say, when people have interviewed me on this subject in the last 2 weeks and said, what do you think? Do you think this is just better diagnosis? I said, I think that children are finally getting diagnosed.
Right.
And if it is better diagnosis, thank God for that. And ask any elementary school teacher in this country if she has seen an increase in autism in her classroom, and I guarantee you they will say yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think just if you look at it logistically, when I was a kid, there was one child in my neighborhood who clearly had autism. And no one, and now I look everywhere and I see children everywhere. How can that be? How can that be that we all just want an excuse for bad behavior? And if you spent any time with our children, you would see that it's not just bad behavior, that there's other things going on.
Many other things. And, Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, the founder of CARD and the founder of Act Today, when she is asked about, is it just better diagnosis, she said that assumes the professionals in the field have not known what they're doing for the last 20 years.
Right.
It also, I always say, well, where are the 1 million adults that are toe walking, hand flapping, stimming, and tantruming? They're not all in institutions, and they're not all homeless people out there. Where did they go?
It all straightened out for them? This is the other thing that they're saying, oh, well, they can outgrow it. Thank you.
Okay. So, you know how we feel about that. Also, in those numbers, very alarming, biggest increases in Hispanic and Black children. And at Act Today, we have Act Espanol, which is a program for the Hispanic community, and we're going to be announcing some exciting developments in that. And we have a public service announcement airing on Univision. Our board member, Gabriela Tessier, has a child with autism, and she is going to be airing a week-long series the last week of this month. We might want to have her on, actually.
Absolutely.
And she is going to be interviewing families and children, one family in particular that we gave an iPad to. And so it will be in Spanish, and a lot of help needed there. Gabriela said this is, there's been a lot of denial among a lot of the families she's known, and she really wants to see a cultural shift with that and get a better diagnosis, get a lot more early intervention there in the Hispanic community.
Absolutely, absolutely, so important. And I think we're going to see a lot of things come from these numbers. One of the things that I was really struck by is the growing disparity between the girls and the boys, and it has a negative effect for both groups.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, we're concerned about how many boys are being diagnosed with this, but as the disparity grows, it means there's more and more services for the boys, and there's less and less for the girls.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we might want to have, might want to spend some time in the future on the show talking to some parents of girls, because I can imagine that's a very isolating experience.
I hear from parents all the time and say, you know, you imagine how bad it is for you, but there are other people, you know, shoulders for you to cry on, a classroom that you can take your children in, and all the moms know what you're talking about, but I take my girl in and there's 8 boys in the class. And my child has no one as a role model. I hear that from the parents a lot. So
and you know, with the girls, it occurs to me that with girls, social pressure is worse.
It is.
And they tend to mature earlier.
Yep.
And there's a lot more pressure among girls to be social.
Yes.
And with boys can kind of be the loner. They can kind of, so I think it's particularly devastating for parents of girls with autism. And we'd like to hear from you, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we are going to be talking about, there's a book, in fact, that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. So topics to talk about, but we want to hear from you the kinds of things that you'd like to know more about. So
let me ask you about the gene. Why do they always wait till April to get these studies out? The genetic studies.
Yes.
Can you simplify for us? Can you give us the autism genetic complexity? Well, it says autism studies confirm genetic complexity, and it is complex, right?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Friday. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get one of our researchers in to kind of take it apart for me, because we're hearing we're hearing it really condensed down on the news, and so what it condenses down to on the news is older fathers more prevalent, and women who gained a certain amount of weight,
30 pounds,
more prevalent. So my husband and I sat on the couch yesterday and went, well, okay, it's
there.
Official.
We are. And my son was adopted, but his birth mother was quite young, 19, and his birth father was quite young, 20.
Right.
And, you know, none of that. So there you go.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is being read by the general public as another case for the genetic link. However, most of these say a very small amount of these, 15%, were linked to new mutations, and some of those mutations have to do with environmental triggers with the genetic mutation.
Right. And this is one of the reasons why I want somebody to really take it apart, because this very simplified thing that keeps being blasted in the media, everybody's going, oh, well, there we have it.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done. We've now explained it's older dads and it's women who are eating too much ice cream when they're pregnant. Good, we're done. We can all go home. And that is not what the studies are saying.
Overall, the new findings will give autism researchers lots to work with, but unfortunately, no clear answers yet for people affected by autism.
There you go. And there you go. But funny that that isn't what's being read.
No, that's not what's being read. No.
At all. So I think it just, as my husband said to me yesterday, he said, well, it's good to have more information as long as we all just know that that's what it is. It's more information. And that we have a long, long way to go.
Well, ACT Today is joining a lot of other autism organizations in calling for a national strategy on this epidemic.
Good.
We are calling for all lawmakers and public servants and leaders to get active on this on a state level and on a national level. Yeah. We're calling for the president and the administration to get active on this. We are asking the scientific community to get busy on the cause and cures, quote, cures, and we're going to have to do this. It's enough is enough.
Exactly. And Nancy, I'm going to be looking to you to tell us what we need to do as individuals to step up, to have our voices meld together and be heard in all those places you were just talking about.
Okay. Well, you and I are going to get information out on when people can vote.
Yep.
You know, Autism Votes is a very powerful way that people can just click on and support lawmakers. I'm asking all parents of children with autism and those that know children with autism and have family members and friends to to be aware of which policymakers support families of children with autism. And we can do more on that. Dr. Graham-Pichet and I are going to be going to Sacramento. We're going to be meeting with lawmakers, and we're going to be acknowledging them and giving them certificates of activism for helping us. And you and I will publicly acknowledge them so people can vote for them. This is the most important thing we can do. We have got to get active. We have got to be like, someone told me, we've got to be a lot like the AIDS community was. And really mobilizing politically and on a local level as well, and getting active with our schools, getting active with our local government. And we're going to be talking to Areva Martin in a little bit. And she's going to be telling us about the Special Needs Network and their work. And on Friday, I'm going to a legislative breakfast that she's sponsoring as part of that. So I'm going to learn a lot more.
You're moving it and shaking it.
Next week, I can fill you in on what some of those lawmakers are doing for us.
Fabulous. And I just want to say, for those of you who are in the beginning part of your journey, if all of that overwhelms you because you say, I'm just trying to get help for my child, I just want you to know that you need to focus on the things that you need to focus on. However, there are going to be lots of people, as you're letting people know that your child's been diagnosed, who say, I don't know what to do for you. And one of the things that we were told early on was to say to those people, I need for you to go and advocate for me for the next 2 years while I'm busy working with my child, because my voice is tied up. So could you go anytime you have an opportunity to like something on Facebook or push the message, please go do that for me. So it doesn't always have to be you. You can say to the grandparents,
that's right,
please do this for us. Advocate while we can.
You know, that's really important, Shannon. I'm glad you brought that up. For the first 2 years after my son was diagnosed, I basically said, I'll help others after my own child gets help.
We said the same thing.
Yeah, and Wyatt was almost 5 when he got when he received ABA therapy, and that's when things started turning around for us, and that's when I started doing fundraising.
There you go. And
then became executive director of Act Today. It was after my own child got help, and before that, I said, I kind of made a vow. You know, to God, and I said, I will help others once my own child gets help. The most single important thing you can do is help your own child and your own family.
Yeah, and I always say, go to ground first.
Yeah.
And then you can help others later. That was my husband and I made that deal, that pact as well. We'll do everything we can for our child, and then we're going to turn around and help as many other people as we can.
That's great.
You do that for yourself, but in the meantime, when other people say, I don't know what to do for you, go use, take my legs and my voice and go advocate for me so that I can be here with my kid, and they will.
Yes.
Wonderful thing. Let's take a break.
Okay.
But when we come back, as you mentioned, we're going to have Areva Martin with us via Skype, which will be a wonderful thing. She's a fabulous autism mom, advocate, author, attorney.
Yeah, talk about a powerhouse.
Yeah, I said I'm so lucky today to be with the two of you. You guys are incredibly powerful women who are getting it done. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a few minutes with Areva.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of the Hotspot.com. The Hotspot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
I am grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope.
They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
When everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Ospaugh-Jackson, and we've got a very exciting guest right now.
Yes,
I'm really excited to meet her.
We do. I had the opportunity to speak a little bit with Areva Martin last week, but she's going to join us again by Skype so that we can have a conversation with her. Areva, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you so much, Nancy, for having me on today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you back. I mentioned last week that we had scheduled to have you on today, and we had a rare opportunity to talk to you on World Autism Awareness Day, so we took that opportunity.
Good.
But I promised that we would have you back on because I knew that Nancy would cease speaking to me if we didn't. And it's wonderful to have you back on anyway because you're an amazing mom and an incredible advocate. You are the co-founder and president of the Special Needs Network. And for anybody who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit about that organization and your role with them?
Yes, Special Needs Network is a 501c nonprofit started in Los Angeles about 6 years ago. And I really started the organization to address the issues that families in low-income and underserved communities faced. I just found that so many families in those communities were disconnected from mainstream autism organizations and really didn't feel as if they had a voice. And what Special Needs Network does is give those families a voice. We connect them with resources. We're very involved with policy advocacy. We've been at the fore of advocating for health insurance for autism therapies. We're now working on a campaign to address issues of disparities in spending at the California Developmental Services Department. And we just really work to create community and to connect families with those services, educational and health, that they really need to help their kids grow and to thrive. So it's been a labor of love. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2, so this is my passion, it's my profession, and it's also very personal to me.
Areva, how old is your son now?
My son Marty is 13.
And how is he doing?
He's doing wonderful. He has just blossomed. I know as a mom firsthand, again, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention services. Marty was one of the fortunate kids. He was diagnosed when he was around 2 years old, and he's had consistent therapy from, some of the best therapists in town, and that's made just a world of difference in terms of his growth and development. And that's why it's so important that all of us that work in the autism and the disability community, really target those families that need the diagnostic services and the intervention services, because we know when the kids get what they need, their limits are just, they have no limits. It's just unbelievable. And so I'm excited about being able to serve and being able to be a part of such a dynamic community.
Well, that's so great that you, because of your own fortunate situation, you became an activist and advocate for others. And I think that often happens with moms like us. Areva, the new figures released by the CDC that say 1 in 88 children now are affected by this epidemic. What do you, this is a big question, but what do you see as part of the solution to dealing with this epidemic?
Nancy, when I saw that number, like many in the community, I was shocked on one hand, but really not on the others, because I see so many kids who have been impacted with autism. Whether they have the official diagnosis or not is very clear from their symptoms. I think what's happening is really positive, which is all of this awareness. I was saying before we went on air, you can't turn on the television, you can't pick up a newspaper or turn on the internet without seeing some story about autism. And we know when you get this much, public attention, public recognition, the dollars hopefully will flow, the dollars for research, so that we can find, we can determine, is it genetic, is it environmental, is it a combination of the two? Are there things that parents can do, pre-conception or during conception that will impact, the lives of children and that brain development, which is so important? And, there's a lot of focus, too, in the media about finding that scientific solution. And although I support that wholeheartedly, I also want to make sure that, resources flow into communities so that parents who do have kids on the spectrum are getting the help that they need, so that we're not so, focused on the cure and, the scientific solution that we lose sight of the needs of the folks dealing with this day in and day out. Because those families, the ones I see at Special Needs Networks, the one that I connect with all over this country, they need a lot of help. And so I'm just hopeful that the new CDC report, is the driving force, the catalyst to get families the help they need.
Amen. I mean, that was beautifully said. And Areva, I deal with them every day as well. As Executive Director of ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today. And as you know, we give grants to families that cannot access or afford the treatment they need, which I always tell people is 99% of them.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That is wonderful.
Areva, I'm wondering, too, that part of the new study, one of the really disturbing facts in it was that the hugest increase has been amongst Hispanic children, followed closely by Black children. Are you particularly concerned by this amazing increase among minority groups?
I am, Shannon, and another part of that report that hasn't been talked about is, despite that being the largest increase, like you said, with African American and Latino children, there's still the belief that so many children in minority communities are undiagnosed. So although they were able to, determine that there's been a growth amongst African Americans and Latinos, the report still concluded that many more children in those communities have not been diagnosed. When I got my son's diagnosis, I couldn't find people in my community, in the African American community, that were talking about autism. There was a stigma associated with having a child, quite frankly, with special needs. Now, we've seen a lot change over the last, 5 to 7 years. More, people using their celebritydom, their high-profile status to make autism, less, mysterious and to make it more acceptable. And I think what we're seeing is more African Americans and more Latino families, feeling more comfortable seeking a diagnosis. And so that's why we're seeing the increases in those numbers, because, we're peeling back the...
and we're losing Areva a little bit here, but...
Are we losing her? Okay.
Yes.
Let's see if we can get her back.
Yeah, absolutely. But
we'll talk a little bit more.
One of the things that we want to talk with her in particular about, and we're sorry for the little bit of difficulty with our Skype there, but this weekend, and I know you're attending it, Nancy.
Yes, on Friday, and we're going to get her back here in a minute, I'm sure,
but
even if we have to take a break.
Yes, the 6th annual Tools for Transformation Conference this Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about, in fact, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break. We'll get her back, because this is a really important thing for our viewers. We'll take a quick break, and
we'll get her back.
We'll get her back because we want her to promote this conference.
Really important. So stick with us. We'll be back in just a minute.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, "To celebrate you is greater now that I can." You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of, and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up all of you is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with cardio isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We were speaking with Areva Martin, a wonderful author, advocate, attorney, and the co-founder and president of the Special Needs Network. We've had some technical difficulty. We're still in the process of trying to get her back. So,
because we want to give you information about her incredible conference this Friday and Saturday in Los Angeles, the Tools for Transformation Conference, which is very important for families to access information. I know, Shannon, when after my son was diagnosed, when he was 3, 4 years old, going to a DAN conference was a turning point in my life because it gave me, that's actually where I heard Dr. Dorian Granpeesheh speak. And believe it or not, my son had been diagnosed for a full year before I ever heard the words ABA therapy.
No, I believe it. I believe it. And it's so important to be able to, first of all, help those families that are in need, but to disseminate information. And sometimes those conferences can be absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
And this is a really important conference. Again, it's called the 6th annual, it is the 6th annual Tools for Transformation Conference. It's this Friday and Saturday. We're hoping to get Areva back with us to talk more about it. But in the meantime, we might as well talk about what your last, week was like, because I know, excuse me.
Need some water?
Yeah. But I know that you went to that event on the Intrepid.
I did.
So tell us what that was and what it was like.
Autism Speaks kicked off Autism Awareness Month by announcing a wonderful day to honor military families with children with autism. They are making this a big part of their initiatives, and I'm proud to say that we led the way with this at Act Today,
Yes, you
with
did.
our Act Today for Military Families program, where we give grants to military families who have children with autism, and those can be active or retired military, because with retired military, they lose the benefits, okay, from TRICARE. So this isn't a good thing. We got to change this. So Autism Speaks, which is very strong in the legislative side, they are pushing forward the Combating Autism Bill, which will make more therapy hours, which will make ABA more readily available, more intensively available to military families, while we bridge the gap with providing treatment. So we went to an event on the U.S. Intrepid, an amazing museum. They have taken an aircraft carrier, turned it into a museum in one of the piers in New York, and we were there with so many notables, astronauts, senators, Senator Larson from Connecticut, Bob and Suzanne Wright, the founders of Autism Speaks, and they were incredibly warm and complimentary of the work we do at Act Today and the work that CARD does. And they, Bob Woodruff, who was the reporter anchor whose head was partially blown off by a landmine, I believe, explosion. I'm not sure exactly the details. Made an amazing comeback. He was the moderator, and families spoke. Our own Karen Driscoll, who founded Act Today for Military Families with me, has been hired away by Autism Speaks to be their Director of Government Relations and Military Affairs. She spoke, and I met many, many brave military families, one in particular, a wounded warrior who he and his 3 children, a little boy with autism, he and his wife spoke to me at length about the challenges because they've moved just recently, lost all their benefits. So it was a great day. I was so proud, Shannon, so proud to be a part of it. You're tearing up, and you're making me tear up.
No, because I can't even imagine how emotional it had to have been on that aircraft carrier, and to be there with, it just makes me so emotional that somebody could risk their life for our country and be a wounded warrior and come home and
not have their children taken care of.
And be told your child doesn't get the best of what we have to offer.
And that's exactly how
can that
the
be?
rights feel about this situation. It's how we feel about this situation. Those families deserve the best of treatment, as all families in America do. All families in America deserve the best care and treatment for their children. They deserve early intervention. We have to demand it, and you have to demand it for your child if you're out there listening. So that was amazing. We also had a great event last weekend, speaking of military families. We had our Act Today for Military Families run and Family Festival, One Hope Wine Family Festival. We had well over 1,000 participants in the 10K, 5K, and Family Fun Run. We had an Easter egg hunt, and at this point, it looks like we've raised at least $105,000 from this one event. Hey,
go, girl.
High five.
Yeah,
for
that's
military
amazing.
families with children with autism. So that campaign is going strong, that program, and we encourage you to go to act-today.org and click on our Act Today for Military Families and apply for a grant. If you're not getting the proper care and treatment for your child and you're a military family, if you're any family, we encourage you. Now, I understand we have Areva back.
Yeah, we do. Areva, are you there? Yep. It was a rumor. Areva, are you there? Oh,
Hi.
so glad to have you back. It is wonderful when it works, technology.
All right. We don't want to lose you again, so we want to get right into the 6th annual Tools for Transformation Conference, which is this Friday and Saturday in Los Angeles. Tell us about it, Areva.
Yes.
Yes, this is our annual event that we've been bringing into the community of Los Angeles. Like you said, 6th annual. This is our 6th year, and it's a 2-day conference, free to families, free to professionals, free to advocates
and community leaders. It starts with a legislative breakfast where we bring together our leaders from government and foundations and other organizations to talk about, how do we address, our deteriorating safety net, given all the cuts that have happened in the California state budget around autism. We then have an advocate summit where we bring together leaders and we train them on how to do policy advocacy and how to, get out and do the work that the community so desperately needs. And then Saturday is really our parent day, and it's all about parents. It's networking, it's support, it's 12 workshops. We have this year over 50 speakers that will present at the conference. We've registered almost 2,000 participants. Child care, 150 kids will be, babysitting and not really even babysitting. They'll be in a special camp that we run called Camp JPAC. So they'll be engaged in music and art and dance. And it's just a wonderful way to bring our community together. And I think it's grown into the largest, autism disability rights conference in LA and maybe even in the state. Because it's so rich with resources. And I'm so glad that organizations like yours, Nancy, and, CARD and Autism Speaks, and so many of the other organizations in town have just been such amazing supporters of Special Needs Network and this event.
Well, I think the work you're doing is remarkable. I want to learn more about it. I want ACT Today to work with you in making sure we can help the families you're servicing. We are particularly concerned about minority communities and making sure they're getting the treatment and care and early diagnosis that their children need. And I stand with you on this, whatever we can do. I know Shannon feels the same way in getting this out there. I will be there on Friday for the legislative breakfast and to hear what a lot of our policymakers have to say. And we're very excited, Areva, and thank you so much for the service you're providing to families.
Oh, and we lost her again.
We lost her, but we got that great information
Yes, we did get that great information. But if you're interested in more information, you can go to Tools for Transformation Conference, Google it, and they've got a great website.
Go on the Special Needs Network website.
Yes. But you can also look under Tools
for Transformation 6th Annual, right.
And great information. And I know that they already have over 2,000 people signed up, but I don't think it's too late. I think that
it's free.
Free, and as she mentioned, there's childcare. And we mentioned earlier in the show, as we talked to her a week ago, that they also offer support for parents who have children on the spectrum who are needing to change their job because of their circumstances that go hand in hand. We know so many of us were not able to do the job that we were doing when our child was diagnosed because we needed to be there to do therapy, we needed to get to clinic appointments, we needed to go to the OT, we needed to, we still needed to work, but we couldn't do what we'd done before. And they're helping to provide parents with tools to make that transition to potentially a new career or a different career that lasts for a couple of years. And they're doing so many amazing things, but I have to say that's one of the things that really struck me that I went, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had to give up my career as a television producer. There was no way I could work the 50, 60 hours a week I used to work.
Absolutely.
And that's really how I got involved with advocacy and working in the nonprofit realm. And I meet so many parents, Shannon, and you changed your career.
I was in the classroom and teaching, and I couldn't do that and be at home with my son, and so this became a whole other avenue for me.
Reinvention is possible, right?
Yes.
Reinvention is possible.
You were the queen of talking about that and how we don't, this doesn't have to be an end.
No, it's, in fact, what I find, Shannon, and what I talk to parents about at conferences is this usually is the beginning of a whole new life. And for me, a much more fulfilling life.
For me as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really was new careers for us. We found out that our so-called disability was an opportunity to do something entirely different. And
it didn't show itself that way in the first couple of years.
Yeah, it'll take a while. Be patient because
that's a stew that has to cook a little while.
I always say I was down there on that kitchen floor for quite a while. You know, it wasn't like overnight. I'm like, okay, I'm an autism advocate activist now, and I'm just fine. No. There were many hard days and nights.
If somebody had said to me even 5 years ago that I would be here hosting a show about autism, I would have laughed until I was delirious.
I know.
I would have said, I'm sure you're mistaken. Check again. Check that crystal ball again.
Check that crystal ball.
Look again.
So anyway, the ATMF Run and Family Festival. It was so much fun. We're doing it again next year.
Why don't we take a break and then come back and show some of the pictures from it, because you had some great pictures.
That sounds great.
Let's do that. Let's take a break and we'll be back and talk some more about the events that happened this last weekend and the money that was raised for military families. Love that. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something. Missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this? Good job!
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she has just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Alspaugh Jackson. And we had Areva Martin on. We lost her. We'd like to say bye, Areva. We're sorry. We're sorry it
She's
was so abrupt.
Troubles,
but
yeah.
we got everything in we wanted to get in, and we're going to have her back. She's a remarkable advocate and mother of a child with autism, a son with autism, and the work she's doing is so needed and simply amazing. And so I encourage everybody to go for the Tools for Transformation Conference this Friday and Saturday if they're in the Los Angeles area, and also just to check out the Special Needs Network, right?
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful website full of resources and amazing things. And we're going to briefly mention an event that's coming up in a week from this weekend at a Spring Farm Festival that we think is a really wonderful event, but we're going to have somebody from that event on the show with us next week.
We're going to have someone on because this event is to raise funds. It's in the, I guess, the western LA area, in Moore Park, California. And it's to raise funds for a great idea, which is housing and programs for young adults with autism that I understand is going to be some sort of cooperative, organic ranch community where our kids, when they're young adults, can go and live and work and be contributing members of the economy, and it just sounds great. And we've got it up on the screen, so if you'd like to plan in advance, I believe it's 60 per person and 100 per couple. And Eddie Money, do you know him?
Yeah.
2 Tickets to Paradise? He's playing.
That's wonderful.
I love him.
So there you go.
So it's got a lot of great things, and you can bring the kids. There's all kinds of petting zoo, bouncy houses, and everything, and I think therapists will be there and that kind of thing.
So wonderful, wonderful event. We're just giving you a heads up because
we're going to have somebody on
from the program. We're going to have them on
probably
next week on the program. Yes. So, but that's on the 21st is the event so that you can plan ahead. But we were not done talking about the wonderful weekend, and we have some pictures to show of the event that
Does Emily, our great director here, have? Okay, this is Graceland Mafia. They are the most fun. Okay, can you tell he's an Elvis, kind of an Elvis deal?
Oh, very fun.
They played, and look at all the people. Shannon.
Fabulous.
Look at all the people. Probably about 1,400. This is one of the teams. Is that the card team? I'm not sure.
No.
No, not the card team. Okay, that's a team.
But I love the matching shirts.
That's a great team. A lot of these guys are military, by the way. And there I am in my...
Your camis.
My camis, yeah. Mark Christopher Lawrence, actor from Chuck, and the anchors from KNSD, NBC, and look at that. Okay.
Face painting.
The spirit was so amazing, and I'm telling you, when you see these Marines and Army and Navy enlisted, officers and out there running for the kids, and it was
so touching. It's always good to see the Marines. Always good to see the Marines.
Send in the Marines, right?
That's right.
So we had a great,
it's great to see all of them. What a wonderful thing, and what a fabulous. I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you.
It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and to have raised that much money, and to know, do you sleep better at night knowing that all that money is going to go to those families and is going to make a difference?
You know, I do. And when we get, what I find is that some of our military families, the letters I receive from them after they get a grant for their child, and I just want to say, I want to acknowledge a couple of people, and that is Andreka Lanier, who is the campaign director and helped spearhead everything. Laura Marquin, who is my director of programs and development. She is truly amazing. She really had every detail of this run festival down to a T. And the amazing Amy Zhang, who never ceases to amaze me. And Caitlin Fullerton, who works with us on this show and getting us information. So, you know, it takes a village, and Act Today is small.
Yeah.
It's lean and mean,
yeah.
but I call them the A-team. I have never seen, you know, I often say, you know, Washington would run like clockwork if they had my team.
Yeah.
Because these
girls
women
get it done.
These girls get it done. They are absolutely dedicated to children and families with autism.
Well, you're the fearless leader, so I want to congratulate you in terms of running that team like clockwork, your lean and mean team, because I appreciate that too.
Well, thank you.
That you run it lean and mean, because the help goes to who it needs to go
the families,
yeah.
right.
And that's what's amazing. A lot of what you guys do just makes such good sense. I wish you were in Washington, because it makes such good sense.
You know, you never
Someday?
know.
Okay.
You
that
never
would be
know.
good. I'll get a vote for Nancy.
I don't think my past would allow me to.
Oh, please. Nowadays, have you seen what everybody else has done, Nancy? It's A-okay. It'd be tame. It'd be a walk in the park. Not to worry. Nowadays?
Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, so what have we got coming up? The Autism Walk is coming up, right?
The Autism Walk is coming up.
What date is that? Do you know?
Gosh. I want to say the 21st. I want to say that that's that Saturday, the 21st. It is.
Okay, it
Getting
is.
confirmation from our fabulous Emily.
Okay.
That it's the 21st, and our plan, as of this moment, is that you and I will be there, and we'll be doing a taped segment, doing interviews quite early in the morning at the resource fair.
Okay.
So if you're in the Los Angeles area, you know, everything aside, I think information is one of the greatest tools that we have, and the resource fair at the Los Angeles Walk for Autism is unlike anything you've ever been to. It is a cornucopia of so much information. Everybody who has anything to do with autism, anywhere within a 150-mile radius, is there. They have each booth has an activity for your child to do, so that you can have even 30 seconds to be able to connect with somebody. I, as a parent, used to just go through and get one flyer from every single booth and take it home afterwards. They give free toys to your children. Your child will have a wonderful time. We still have a goldfish from that my son won.
Really? It's still alive?
Still alive.
That's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. And I think it's a carp. I don't think it really is a goldfish. It's gotten so big. But, you know, your child gets sensory toys for free.
Are we going to bring our boys the day we're doing it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we need to have some help and support, though, because we'll be busy for at least a couple of hours.
Okay, we'll find some volunteers from my office to help. Maybe Amy can come along.
But it's a wonderful event to bring your kids to.
And so many times we can't bring our kids to things that other people bring their children to.
Yeah.
You know, because the food that's going to be there, the stimulation.
And there is a lot of stimulation, but there's quiet rooms. But the best thing is to see all those people there and know that every single one of them gets it. It's the best thing
That's very
ever.
empowering, isn't it, Shannon?
It is. To look through that sea of people and go, okay, here is my community. They get it. I'm telling you, you walk taller, you feel better, you feel less isolated. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And then you go home and you have all this information. And sometimes, you know, I usually go home and dump it all on the living room floor and sort through it all and say, this is for now, this is for later.
That's a great idea.
And then pick out which toys my son gets to play with and which ones we want to save for reinforcement later on.
Oh,
I'm telling
great.
you get good stuff from it.
This is great. And I think you and I are probably going to get some great ideas for people to have on this show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a wonderful event. We want to connect with you there. If you're in the LA area or even close by, great to travel to.
Yeah.
We're at the end here.
We
so
are?
We are. But I want to thank you for being here.
This felt like 5 minutes today.
I know, it flew by. We want to thank Areva Martin for having been with us. Awesome lady.
And next week we're having on a wonderful young woman, a speech therapist who's developed a remarkable app for iPads and other things for children on the spectrum.
Fabulous. So lots of things to look forward to. We're going to be checking the news throughout the week. But remember, there are lots of ways to get in touch with us. And if you have a story that you want to see covered, please give us your suggestions and your thoughts and your comments and your questions. We really appreciate it.
We really want to hear from you. This show is about you and servicing you and your needs. And tell us what topics you want to see covered. So until next week, right, Shannon?
Absolutely. Give your kids a hug from us.
Please.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.